What's up Nakama, welcome to the part 12, of What If Luffy Had Koby Join His Crew, Chapter 59, Mary's Lament. Oimo groaned, the ever-blue sky swimming into his vision. His hearing came to a second later, but it was not pretty. Explosions, the like of which he had not heard in over 100 years, sent tremors through the ground he was lying on. With a grunt, Oimo pushed himself into a sitting position. Nearly every building around him was broken or altogether gone, hinting at the destruction that must plague the rest of the island. Shaking his head, the giant spotted his Kashi next to him, a little burnt and tied up. Grabbing Kashi's sword, Oimo cut his fellow giant free before proceeding to smack him awake. Oi! Kashi! Get up! Kashi rolled over, pushing himself onto all fours before coughing up what little remained of his dinner from that evening. My insides feel like we had a run-in with that electric sea king Jaffer, Kashi coughed. What happened? Those pirates got past us and into a nice lobby, Oimo admitted. We've failed, Kashi. We won't get our captains back. Damn it. Kashi growled, rolling back onto his back. 50 years for naught. Run away. Several smaller voices cried, growing louder by the second. That idiot called a buster call. And eyes, lobby is done for. Run. The giants hummed, turning to see the Frankie family and the foreman of Galila running as fast as they could while still carrying the wounded Gamora. Oh damn. One of them yelled. It's those giants. Leave them. Zanbai ordered. We don't have time. Nagagaga. Granny Kokoro laughed, chimney and gone beyond her shoulders and a bottle of alcohol in her hand. Keep running, boys. The Marines is gonna destroy the island. Nagagaga. Wait a second, Oimo muttered. Did he say buster call? The two giants glanced at each other, sharing a silent, panicked conversation as the rest of the Frankie family ran between them. As one, the giants started running after them. Wait. Take us with you. This'll do, Nami nodded, finishing her inspection of the ship the group had hijacked. Spandam and his men were either unconscious on the bridge or, more likely, in the water below, all of them having been no match for the Straw Hats. 5 of the remaining 8 battleships were still within eyesight, firing on an ice lobby. The other 3 had sailed around toward the front of the island. This is a report from Ship 2. A man called over the loudspeakers, all Marine personnel have been evacuated and identified or are presumed dead. Also, we have identified about 60 pirates and the 2 giants at the front of the island. Hey, Frankie smirked. That'll be Zanbai and the others. Galila, too, Jin put in. And Granny Kokoro, Nami added. We fired on them, the man continued. All 60 are presumed dead. The Tower of Law, the courthouse, and bridge connecting them are no more. The only target left is the Bridge of Hesitation. No. Frankie wailed, falling to his knees. The pirates didn't blame him, all of his friends were in that group. No. How can they kill without a second thought? Grace cried. We can mourn them later, Zoro stated, hardening his heart for the time being. We can't afford to break down now. We need to be ready to leave when Luffy and the cook get here. How are we going to get to Sanji? Koby asked, forcing his eyes to not release their tears. He was still in the Tower of Law last we saw him. Don't forget about our baby Dendens, Amy reminded him. Raising her wrist, she woke her snail and hoped the chef would answer. Hello? A relieved sigh passed through the group at the sound of Sanji's voice. He sounded beat up and his breathing was ragged, but he was alive. Sanji. Amy yelled into the snail to be heard over the cannon fire. Where are you? I'm outside the Tower of Law. Sanji shouted. The passageway is flooded. Stay put. Nami ordered. We stole a marine ship. We'll come get you when we take off. Hurry. I'm not sure how long I can deflect these cannonballs until they spot me. The snail clicked off. Then it's just Captain Luffy we're waiting for, Koby finalized. We'll have to hold out here. No, Zoro denied. We'll fight on the bridge. That'll give us more room. The battleships are turning this way. Remember, Luffy lifted the ban on killing, so don't hold back. With a nod between them, Zoro, Koby, Jin, Franky, Amy, and a reluctant Usopp dashed up the steps. The remaining 8 ships had converged on the bridge, a cannonball breaking the first half of the structure. The building where Straw Hat Luffy and La Bluchie of CP9 are fighting has been separated from the rest of the Bridge of Hesitation. The loudspeakers announced, a total of 10 pirates have been confirmed on the bridge, including Pirate Hunter Zoro, Devil Child Nico Robin, Man Demon Jin, and Trihorn Koby. All Marines of rank Captain and above, prepare to attack. Hey, Jin. Zoro called as the main fighter group reached the top of the stairs. You wanna lighten the load? With pleasure. The Logia cackled as he let a little bit of his control over his rage slip, electricity building up between his donfa. He turned toward the nearest ship and let loose 500 million watt lightning shot. A ball of pure electrical energy the same height of its creator shot out, slamming into the side of the battleship. The ship was engulfed in light before exploding, the sinking ship taking those unlucky enough to survive the explosion to a watery grave as it sank. Amy hummed, licking her lips. Now that was hot. Jin smirked back at her. There's more where that came from, sweetheart. Jin panted. Flirting now of all times? Koby yelled as the remaining 1,400 captains and commanders jumped off the battleships. He and his teacher moved so they were back to back. 3-sword style. Zoro began. 2-sword style. Koby followed. Dragon Twister. They yelled together, their combined attack blowing more opponents out of the air than either one could do, separately. With matching smirks, the 2 swordsmen split in opposite directions. Weapons left. Franky shouted, blasting a quartet of captains out of the air. Special attack, Sunflower Star. Usopp called from Franky's other side, his attack beating 5 enemies. Heavy impact. Amy cried from the air, throwing Marines into the ocean with her momentum. It was apparent that these men were not able to use moonwalk like CP9 could, so throwing them away was child's play. Once all of the Marines were either in the ocean or on the bridge, the battlefield and her attacks changed. 10,000 kilogram press. The section of the bridge seemed to give way underneath her weight, crumbling into the water below and taking many Marines with it. Spinning death, electrocution. Jin shouted, zapping, forward into the largest clump of Marines. Thunder rolled out from wherever his tonfa made contact, his foes falling one after another with blackened faces and burnt clothing. Only the strongest of them still had a beating heart. A portion of the Marines ran toward the steps, but Nami and Grace had it handled if the flashes of light and random laughter were of any indication. The pain, screaming and sounds of bone snapping may have also indicated that Robin was doing her fair share as well, leaving Chopper and Kaku on the ship. You must be Ranoa Zoro, a man in marine-themed, Arabic-like clothing stated as he calmly approached the man unarmed. What's it you? Zoro responded coldly, readying his weapons. I'm here to defeat you. Having had enough talk, Zoro launched forward, Yubashiri post to cut the man in two. The weapon never did, the Marine catching the weapon before it could. From the points of contact, rust covered the blade. With his eyes widening, Zoro pulled away from the man as his sword's blade fell apart. Yubashiri, no. I am a man that ate the rust trust fruit, the Marine taunted. No swordsman could hope to beat me. The rust man was right. It wasn't a swordsman that beat him. Firebird Star. Usopp's surprise attack caught the DevilFruit user in the side, blasting him away from the green-haired pirate and into the ocean. Off to the side, the tower where Luffy and Lucci had been fighting exploded. This is an urgent report. The Marine on the loudspeaker shouted. Just now, Rob Lucci of CP9 was seen lying face down in a pool of blood. He's been defeated by Straw Hat Luffy. Yeah. The pirates celebrated, Nami happily cradling Luffy's hat. Usopp, Zoro called. Go make sure Luffy gets his ass back here. Right. Ducking around stunned Marines, the sniper ended up with a clear view of the battlefield their captain had been fighting on. Luffy. Come on. I can't move. Luffy gasped, his chest heaving with each breath. I need you to pull me up. I've got your back, Usopp. Koby shouted, throwing away 3 men that had tried to sneak up on the man. Get our captain. Usopp grappling hook. Swinging said hook over his head like a lasso, Usopp proved his worth by making a clean shot, the rope and hook wrapping around Luffy's torso. The sniper passed the line to Koby with the order to pull Luffy back up. Koby nodded and changed into his Dino mode, taking the rope in his mouth to barrel through any Marines who tried to stand in their way. Luffy seemed to skip across the water as the rope pulled at him. The sound of a struggle flowed over the loudspeakers. I gotcha, Luffy, Usopp finally stated as the rubber man reached the top of the bridge. Straw Hat. A familiar voice shouted over the speakers. Big bro. We're alive. Shut up. Another recognizable voice chastised. You'll tip off the Marines. Who gives a damn? Not the Frankie family. They're alive. Frankie cried happily, wiping the tears out on his eyes from hearing Zanbai and the others over the loudspeaker before the communication was shut down. I'm not crying. He denied, his flailing left arm knocking a trio of Marines off of the bridge. You're crying. Everyone get to the ship, Nami shouted. Her order went unfulfilled, however, as their escape plan went up in flames. The Marines had fired on the ship. No. Chopper. Grabbing both Robin and Nami's arms, Grace all but dragged them back toward their friends and away from the now burning ship. Following the ship in destruction were the 3rd and 4th bridge supports as they crumbled just after the trio of female pirates made it to the next pillar in the series, the captains left behind falling into the ocean below with the debris. Only the 2nd pillar was left to hold all of the Straw Hats on the bridge. Cuckoo landed next to them after using Moonwalk to escape the burning ship, Chopper in his arms. Now what? Frankie questioned, his open left arm aimed at a battleship. That ship was our only way out. All battleships, prepare to fire on support column 2. This doesn't look good, Koby growled. Booed up, booed up, booed up. Sanji. Jin yelled into the snail. Please tell me you have a miracle. I do. Sanji responded. Jump into the sea. Trust me. You all heard him. Jin shouted, too out of options to question the suicidal action. Jump. Taking a leap of faith, the pirates, Frankie, and Cuckoo jumped off the side of the column just as several cannonballs crashed into it. Looking down, they were shocked to see a very familiar vessel, their chef waving at them with a little girl in a white raincoat with the hood pulled up. Though beaten up, the ship was undoubtedly the Going Merry. Get on. The little girl called as they fell. I'll get you out one more time. Mary. Usopp cried happily. The outlaws landed on the deck with a thump, Frankie falling through the floorboards and into the men's quarters. Under her own command, the Going Merry lurched forward to avoid the falling debris of the last pieces of the Bridge of Hesitation. Zoro and Sanji set to work breaking up any chunks that threatened their escape while Jin moved to where he could see the most marine ships off the bow. This'll do me in. He yelled back toward his crew. Again, 500 million watt lightning shot. The attack destroyed the fronts of the 2 closest government vessels, the sinking war machines impeding some of the others from reaching the pirates. The warships that could target them fired, but the Going Merry was too small and agile for the bulky battleships to catch. She sailed like a ship possessed. Robin calmly walked to the back of the ship to stand next to that unconscious form of Jin, making eye contact with Spandam as he glared at her from one of the whole battleships. She silently raised her arms and used her powers to snap the man's spine in two without batting an eye. His cry was music to the pirates' ears. The Going Merry and the Straw Hat Pirates had escaped the Marines and survived the Buster Call. We did it, Luffy smiled from his captain's seat a couple hours later, his hat returned to him by his girlfriend. Water 7 was visible on the horizon, and they had received word that Galileo and the Frankie family had hijacked the Puffing Tom to get away from the island. We actually did it. Luffy pulled himself up into a sitting position, despite his protesting muscles, to gaze on the scene of the deck. Oddly enough, Koby and their prisoner were standing next to each other, an arm around each other's shoulders. Why that was, Luffy hadn't a clue, but he didn't care either. The crew plus 2 were gathered around the little girl in the white raincoat, Sanji having introduced her as the spirit of the Going Merry, but she refused to lower her hood. Apparently, she had sailed the ship herself all the way to Nai's lobby through Aqua Laguna to rescue them. Her plan had been to try to keep herself hidden with the assumption that all of the crew would be together when she picked them up, but when she'd had to get Sanji beforehand, then there was no point in hiding anymore. Of the crew, it was Usopp's smile that shone the brightest. The sounds of people yelling pulled at Luffy's attention, alerting him to the galleon full of people that had come to meet them. Among these people were the Frankie family, the Galileo shipwrights, and Iceberg himself. "Ice Pops!" Luffy shouted, alerting the other people to their visitors. Mary faded away, releasing her physical form. "Hey! We're back! So I can see!" Iceberg yelled back. "I'm sorry," Mary whispered before the wood groaned. "I can't go any farther." The Going Merry split down the middle, her figurehead moving to look like she was bowing to the other ship. "Mary!" the crew cried, those nearer the front scrambling to find something to hold onto. "What's wrong?" "She's done," Iceberg announced. "She can't go on anymore. You have to let her rest." "No!" Luffy shouted, stretching to hold the figurehead in one hand and the mast in the other. "Mary's alive. We aren't going to just abandon her. She's a ship." Iceberg shouted back. "You can't sail her. She's already falling apart. Tow us in," Luffy ordered. "Tow us in. There's nothing I can do to repair your ship. We don't need her as a ship." Everyone froze at Luffy's words, Iceberg included. "We need you to help us bring her back as a person." Frankie called her a wood fairy. "Can you do something with that?" "Captain," Mary's voice whispered. "You don't have to. I said that you were going to come with us to the end of our adventure." Luffy interrupted, speaking directly toward the deck and the crack therein below him. "I said that in Skypiea. If you aren't going to come with us as a ship, then you'll come with us as a crewmate." And, as the shipwrights of Galileo watched, the breaking ship defied the laws of physics. Stairs fell from her wooden eyes and the bow of the ship began to pull itself back up, ropes from the rigging shooting down to wrap around the railing and pull taut. Slowly, ever so slowly, the gap in the deck closed. "I only have to make it to the shore," Mary panted, loud enough that the people on the other ship could hear. The jaws of every shipwright hit the deck in shock. "Isn't that right, Captain?" Luffy smiled, his hand falling to rest on Mary's figurehead. "That's right, Mary. Just a little longer." "Well," Iceberg blinked in the face of the irrefutable proof that the ship was alive. "Fine. I'll see what I can do." With that said, the two ships, the bigger helping the smaller along, sailed toward Water 7. Chapter 60, The Dog and the Sheep. A bonfire roared in the middle of Scrap Heap Island where the best shipwrights of Galileo had cleared a space for just such an occasion. Iceberg watched his men from atop one of the larger piles of scrap as Polly and Tilestone carried several longboards from their work area by the ocean to the burning inferno, the two heaving the wood in. Cuckoo followed them, putting both to shame by carrying over twice as much by himself. "Jeepers, y'all," the Zone chuckled. "This isn't that heavy." "Shut up," Polly growled. "Iceberg might have accepted you back, but I still don't trust you. You'll have to earn my trust again, Longnose." Cuckoo's smile vanished. "Listen, Polly. I know what I did was bad, but please believe me when I say that I was, literally raised to be an assassin. I'm sticking my neck out to be back here, hiding from the world government itself." Still, Polly huffed, pulling out a cigar and lighting it with the bonfire before them. "Do you think this plan'll work?" It seems really risky. Tilestone yelled. Iceberg came up with this plan. It's gotta work. This can't be easy for the old girl, Cuckoo offered with a wince. I can't imagine going through something like this. This is the last of the paneling, Lulu announced, dropping another load of wooden boards into the fire. The keel's all that's left. In that case, our work here is done, the smoking shipwright responded. Iceberg wanted to do the last part alone. We know that, Tilestone, Cuckoo groaned, stuffing a pinky into one of his ears. Do you have to be louder than a million Junabugs at midnight? Either way, this is it, Lulu cut in. Either Iceberg gets this to work or the Going Merry dies. Later, the Straw Hat Pirates were sheltered in a side house owned by Galley Law placed within Dock 1, still recovering from their recent stunt to save one of their own. Luffy was seated at the building's lone dining table, eating despite not being awake by using a technique he had developed after missing so many meals in Alabasta. 3 days had passed since the pirates had escaped from the judicial island of Inai's lobby and a buster call that Spandam had called down on it, but it was what had happened since they'd returned that Luffy dreamt about. Galley Law welcomed the pirates back, their galleon towing the Straw Hats' failing ship to Scrap Heap Island. Quickly, Iceberg ordered the outlaws to grab anything they wanted to keep from the ship before shooing away anyone who wasn't a top-tier shipwright. Cuckoo fell to his knees at that moment, begging for Iceberg's forgiveness with a story about how he had betrayed the world government just for the chance to return to Galley Law. Against the suggestions of the 3 other foremen, Iceberg accepted. While he no longer held the same status in the company that he once did, he was Cuckoo of the Spring Wind once more. About 36 hours afterward, almost midnight at that point, the pirates were lounging in the living area of their temporary home when there was a knock at the door. Without waiting for someone to let him in, Iceberg opened the door and entered, a small form hidden behind him. Did it work? Luffy asked instantly, suddenly serious. Iceberg smiled. Well, let me introduce you to Mary, the first ever recorded wood fairy without a full ship. He stepped to the side to show the one that had been behind him. It was a little girl who stood just over 4 feet tall with wavy, white hair that fell to her neck. She had 2 big, round, black eyes and a button nose that seemed to connect with an upward curve in the center of her mouth, giving her a shy smile reminiscent of her old figurehead. She still wore a white raincoat that covered most of her form and matching rain boots sat on her feet. A wooden hammer was secured in a loop on her coat and she held a folded black flag in her hands. Finally, 2 sheep horns like those of her old figurehead curled out from over the girl's ears and a silver choker rested on her neck. The pirates stared at the girl, somewhat dumbfounded. Mary got continuously more fidgety at the lack of response she was getting. Mary! Usopp cried, launching forward to wrap the little girl in a hug. Surprised, Mary dropped the flag in her hands and wrapped her arms around the sniper before realizing who was holding her. Uncle Usopp. Tears fell on the white raincoat from Usopp's eyes. His wish had come true in the best way possible. They weren't getting rid of the Mary. She was joining them as another member. She's so cute. Nami shouted, rushing forward to steal the little girl from Usopp. The Clabbatterman laughed as the navigator swung her around. Bah-ha-ha-ha. Mrs. Nami. One by one, the pirates eagerly greeted their newest member, but only Usopp, Nami, and Luffy got special names, those being Uncle, Mrs. Nami, and Captain, respectively. Luffy called for a party officially welcoming the fairy onto their crew, forcing Sanji to go out and spend several thousand beerus on food. He had to grab extra as well since they didn't know what Mary could, and could not eat after all. On the bright side, with Luffy there was no panic about food going to waste. It was eventually determined that Mary, being partially wood and sheep themed, was a vegetarian. This put her in several groups with Chopper. Both were vegetarians, both were supposed to have fur, Mary looking like a sheep and whatnot, and both had horns. No one had questioned it as they watched the wood fairy talk with the doctor from her perch on Usopp's lap. The sniper hadn't let her out of his sight since she'd been introduced. Upon being asked, the Clabbatterman explained that she saw Usopp as an uncle because she saw Kayu's butler, Mary, as her father since she was built by him about 4 years before the Straw Hats claimed her as their own. Because he worked closely with and for Kayu, then Kayu was her aunt. And, since Usopp was dating her, he became her uncle. Upon that revelation, the long-nosed teen had all but dragged the girl away to talk to her Aunt Kayu. The crew also learned that her raincoat had been hiding scars. The little girl said that she had a scar from every injury she'd received as a ship, which explained that the choker she wore, not, unlike the metal plate that had held her figure head-on after crashing into Laboon the island whale, hid a scar from that same incident. She also had a prominent scar on her left forearm from when Wappa the Tyrant had eaten part of her railing. She asked Jin to cover that with her straw hat tattoo, a skull with ram horns and crossbones on a sail. "Well, there's one more thing you all should know," Iceberg announced after dinner had been finished, pulling something out of his pocket. It was a wooden heart about the size of Luffy's fist. "This is Mary's heart, literally. I carved this out of the old keel and had the other shipwrights burn the rest of the ship piece by piece. This is the only remaining piece of the going Mary and the only thing grounding her soul to this earth. If this gets destroyed, she will die." "What?" Usopp questioned. "Is there any way we could just hide it in a safe place?" "Well, I'm afraid not," Iceberg answered with a shake of his head. "Mary has to be within a certain distance of her heart to maintain a physical form. And her heart will rot if not given proper care. Even so, it will still age. I'd say that, should Mary die of old age, she has about 80 years." The pirates took the news in stride, Mary taking her heart carefully. She would carry it with her for the rest of her life. That had been almost a day ago, yet the pirates were still fawning over the little wood fairy. She had changed clothes into a red and white striped shirt that reminded them of the Going Mary's cross sail and a pair of cargo shorts so she could carry her heart in the lower pocket on her right side and her hammer in one of her belt loops. She had on a red one-piece bathing suit underneath and her feet were bare. Small scars and burn marks littered her arms and legs, but she proudly showed off her new tattoo on her left forearm and the baby dent on her left wrist, number 12. The sleeping bubble popped as Luffy woke up, falling back in his chair to crash onto the floor. From the living room, Koby, Usopp, Nami, and Mary laughed at him while Sanji took the empty plates from the table with a smirk. Chopper and Robin returned through the door, the doctor commenting that he had treated all of the Frankie family without letting Robin out of his sight. "Chopper." Mary waved. "Robin. Welcome back." "Hello to you too, Miss Ship," Robin chuckled, Sanji taking a shopping bag from her with hearts in his eyes before returning to the kitchen to make the women of the crew a snack. The others slowly wandered back until the whole crew was doting on their youngest and newest member. Technically, she was 4.5. Biologically, she was about 10. And mentally, well, she was a mix of all the Straw Hats, so wherever that number falls. Ow. The door flew open, revealing Frankie, Kiwi, and Mazu. Usopp slapped his hand over Mary's eyes, yelling at the cyborg to put some pants on. Frankie ignored him, dropping himself to sit on the ground. "Listen, Straw Hats. I know you guys need another ship to sail on since Mary really isn't a ship anymore. That's why I'm going to offer you one." "You are?" Koby asked. "No matter what I tried, I still ended up following in the footsteps of my old master Tom. He was the man that built the Oro Jackson, the ship of Gold Roger. That ship was made of wood from a jewel tree known as Adam. Using that money we took from you guys, I was able to buy some Adam wood on the black market through a contact of mine. It would be an honor if you would take the ship I build and sail it to the end of the Grand Line, future King of the Pirates." "Of course," Luffy answered, his crew breaking out in celebration. The celebration didn't last long, however, as one wall of the building burst inward, leaving a gaping hole surrounded by dust hanging in the air. "What the hell?" Frankie yelled. "Language." Usopp chastised, his body shielding Mary from debris. He'd taken to treating her more like his daughter than an honorary niece. The dust from the destruction started to settle, a lone figure walking through. The crew readied their weapons in case a fight broke out. Finally, the man was revealed. GGG Grandpa. Luffy panicked, falling back. The man, dressed in marine garb, was wearing a dog-shaped mask with his face showing in the dog's mouth, the gray of an old beard poking out near the dog's jaw. What are you doing here? That's Vice Admiral Garp. Koby gasped in reverence, the tips of his swords hitting the ground as the marine took off the mask. He'd looked up to Garp as his role model while trapped on Alvida's ship. I always wanted to meet him. You haven't seen me in years and that's how you greet me, brat? Garp yelled at Luffy. Even your cabin boy welcomed me better, I'll have to beat some manners into you. He shaved forward, moving too fast for the other pirates to react before his fist came down on Luffy's head. Ow! Luffy complained, staggering away while holding a lump on his head. That hurt, old man. How could a punch hurt the Don? Jin gasped in shock. I've only ever seen the Donna hurt Don Luffy like that. There's no defense against the fist of love, Garp declared, lifting Luffy up by the front of his shirt. So this is your little band of friends? I bit raggedy, but I'll make Marines out of all of you. No way. Luffy denied, struggling in the man's grip. I'm gonna be the king of the pirates. You brat. Garp raised his fist to hit the teen over the head again. Rope bind. A piece of rope shot into the building from the work zone, outside, wrapping itself around Garp's raised fist and pulling back. Huh? Confused by the happening, the Marine scanned the assembled pirates, his eyes coming to rest on the only one who wasn't at an ice lobby. Mary had her arms out, fists clenched as she concentrated on holding the Vice Admiral's fist back. Who are you? I'm Mary. The little girl declared. I won't let you hurt my captain. Ha ha. Garp laughed, throwing his head back. Ha ha z. He's asleep? The pirate escaped, Luffy managing to shed his vest and escape his grandfather's clutches. He stumbled over to Nami and ducked behind her. In all honesty, he wasn't sure who was scarier, an angry Nami or his grandfather in general. Gah! Garp gasped, waking up from his mini-nap. Oh. I fell asleep, didn't I? Ha ha. Luffy, Nami whispered. Your grandfather is crazy. I heard that. Garp said, his eyes coming to rest on the woman his grandson was cowering behind. So you're the little lady that my idiot grandson's fallen for, eh? Not bad. Wait a second, Jin muttered. You're the one that started a betting pool on the Don's love life. Sure did. Garp laughed without a hint of shame. 1/2,000,000 beers for it. Got another bet going, too. Hey, brat. You and her done it yet? Neither Luffy or Nami answered, but their red faces were all the answer Garp needed. Ha! I was right. Pay up, maggots. Grumbling profanities, several lower Marines outside each passed Garp a handful of money. You two what? Sanji demanded, Jin and Zoro holding him back from mangling their captain. That didn't stop the cook from trying, though, his legs flailing while he impossibly balanced a tray of food. When did this happen? How long do I have to beat your ass? Luckily, Sanji never got the chance to beat on the captain as Amy's parasol came down to whack him on the head. The hit gave the chef a minor concussion. He wouldn't remember that part of Garp's visit. You've got a lively crew, and a beautiful woman, Garp laughed as Zoro and Jin unceremoniously dropped the chef after the lightning man took the tray. Just like all Monkey D. Men, I bet you fell for her in the span of a week if not a day. Your old man would be proud of you. Aren't you my old man? Luffy questioned. No, Garp shook his head. I'm your grandpa. I meant your dad would be proud of you. I have a dad? Of course you have a dad, Nami scolded, punching the DevilFruit user over the head, much to Garp's silent approval. Where else would you come from? People don't just appear out of thin air. But I never knew my dad, Luffy argued, less hurt than from his grandfather's fists. I just assumed that he was dead or I didn't have one. My son ain't dead, Garp waved off. I heard he was there to see you off at Town. He was? What's he like? What's his name? Are we alike? You don't even know your dad's name? Usopp questioned. That's not his fault, Nami defended, rounding on the sniper. Most of us on the crew are orphans. Neither Zoro or I knew our parents and Sanji was raised by F. I'm an orphan, Koby announced. Never really knew my mom, Jin offered. I don't have a mom, Mary chirped. I was kicked out of my pack, Chopper supplied sadly. You know our story, Amy and Grace shrugged. So, Grandpa, Luffy tried, slowly coming out from behind his lover. Garp threw him his vest. What's my dad's name? What's he like? Is he strong? I guess it is partially my fault for not telling you, Garp conceded. And yeah, your dad's strong. One of the strongest and most feared men in the world, actually. His name is Dragon the Revolutionary. Monkey D. Dragon. What? Everyone fell backwards in shock, only Luffy and Mary not understanding what the big deal was. Your dad is Dragon the Revolutionary? Nami screamed. I didn't even know Vice Admiral Garp had a son. The Marines cried. The son of one of the Marines' top men is the leader of the revolutionaries? Koby gasped. What kind of messed-up family do you have? Amy demanded. I don't get it, Luffy stated. Why is his job so important? It's... Robin tried. The world government tries to keep the peace throughout the world. Pirates like us, we don't usually go picking fights with them on a large scale. Most of us are smaller, kind of like scary bugs. The revolutionaries, on the other hand, are the only organization in the world that actively fights the world government. Many countries have adopted their way of thinking and have rebelled against the government as well. So Luffy wasn't the first one in his family to declare war on the world government, Grace thought aloud, even though one of them works there. What a weird family, Usopp muttered. Oh, Garp blinked. I probably shouldn't have said all that. Just forget it. Are you nuts? Anyway, Garp brushed off. Men, fix this wall for me. We'll be leaving when it's repaired. If you were going to have us fix it, then why did you break it in the first place? A Marine demanded. Because, Garp smiled, just walking through the front door doesn't make an impression. Mr. Garp, Koby stuttered, slowly raising a shaking hand, a pen and paper in his other. Before you go, see, could I have your autograph? Garp blinked. Ha ha ha. He roared, throwing his head back. A pirate's asking for a Marine's autograph. Now I've seen everything. The old man snatched the paper and pen, scribbling down his name in barely legible scrawl. If I might ask, the Marine began, glancing at the boy, why would Tryhorn Koby want the autograph of the hero of the Marines? Well, sir, Koby shifted, well aware of the eyes of everyone else. When I was younger, before I met Captain Luffy, I always looked up to the Marines. And my parents had died when I was young in a pirate raid on our town, but I was old enough to fend for myself, so no one took me in. Then, almost 3 years ago, I boarded a pirate ship I had mistaken for a fishing vessel. For 2 years, I dreamed of becoming a Marine to catch people like Alvida, the pirate who was holding me captive. You were like a hero to me, so strong and brave. Little, weak me wanted to be like that. He paused, a single tear sliding down his face. And then I met Captain Luffy. He saved me from the hell Alvida had put me through, and I thought that I had a chance to fulfill my dream. I wanted to be a Marine. But the Marine I met wasn't a man like you. He was power-hungry and didn't care about justice. He killed his own men or ordered them to kill themselves. I could feel my dream falling apart. And so, Koby continued, his voice becoming more hopeful and nostalgic, I chose a new dream. If I couldn't bring justice to the world through the Marines, then I'd do it my own way. Pirates aren't bound by the rules of the world. We don't need to care about governmental politics." Koby smiled a soft smile. The Marines couldn't touch Crocodile in Alabasta. And they wouldn't have done anything about Wapol, the corrupt king of Drum. But we could. And we did. Ah ha ha ha. Garp laughed, making Koby almost jump back, his hands on the handles of his swords. Ah ha ha. "You would have made a fine Marine, kid, but I don't think you've missed your chance. I could wipe your slate clean for you." "What do you say? Wanna still join the Marines?" Vice Admiral Garp. Koby gaped, his eyes locked on the man's outstretched hand. The rosette's hand twitched as if wanting to accept and came up to hover by Garp's palm. He glanced back, staring into the faces of his crewmates, taking in each of their expressions. Most of them were hard as steel, leaving the choice up to him, but Chopper seemed about ready to break into tears like Frankie had, and Grace had gone so far as to paint her calming green on her arm. They weren't his crewmates. No. They were his family. "Sorry, Vice Admiral," Koby apologized, batting the hand away gently and stepping back into the fold of pirates. "I can't leave my nakama." "I see," Garp sighed, adding something at the bottom of the page with his autograph. "That's a real shame. We could use more kids like you in the Marines. As long as you don't pull any more reckless stunts like your group did at Anai's lobby, I should be able to get you enlisted, so give me a call if you change your mind." "Thank you," Koby acknowledged, taking the page and ripping the bottom half away, "but that won't be necessary." Garp sighed again. "Damn us monkey DS, we have this stupid ability to inspire absolute loyalty. My father had it. I have it. My son has it. And now my grandson, too." He turned and started toward the hole in the wall. "I know a lost cause when I see one. Goodbye, Tryhorn Koby, and good luck. And Luffy." He paused. "Learn some damn manners, you brat." Garp left as soon as his men forced him to repair the wall, saying that he wasn't going to arrest Luffy or the Straw Hats because Luffy was his grandson and that the other officials would understand. That night, the Straw Hats partied around Galilaw's private pool. The others who had been part of the rescue operation joined them, the party going on till the next morning. Sanji enjoyed seeing many of the women in their swimsuits, though he and Luffy got into several fights over him ogling Nami. That was, until the captain and navigator disappeared mysteriously around midnight. No one really noticed, they were all either wasted, distracted, or out cold by that point. Zoro ended up getting his student and Grace blackout drunk while Amy was distracted. Koby and Grace would never know how it was that they ended up cuddling with each other on a raft in the middle of the pool, a pineapple clutched between them. Amy formed a fast bond with Kiwi and Mazu, the three using their time to mess with Pulley, pointing out all the indecent women around and watching his reactions. They ended up having to stop when the man passed out from blood loss around 11 p.m. and a photographer asked Amy for an interview. Mary spent every moment she could in the pool, Usopp right beside her. Being the spirit of a ship, Mary was a natural swimmer and she absolutely loved the water. She made sure that her heart was with Robin at all times since she didn't exactly trust any of the guys with it. They were too busy dancing with chopsticks too close to the grill for her tastes. Grill equals fire, fire burns wood. Simple logic, really. The next morning, she woke to find herself wrapped in a fluffy towel while snuggling with Usopp on the lawn chair. The rest of the crew, minus Nami and Luffy, were strewn about the pool area. The horned clabberman spotted Koby and Grace dozing on the raft and chuckled about how that was her idea. She didn't know where the pineapple had come from, though. Were they even native to Water 7? She also spotted Jin hanging from his shoelaces tied around Amy's umbrella mounted on a flagpole. How he got there or why he was only in his boxers and headband, she hadn't a clue. Amy, for her part, had one arm dangling over the side of the roof and was missing her hat and one shoe. She had a bundle of lemons and limes strewn around her and a half-drunk six-pack of hard lemonade in her hand. Zoro was slumped over the bar counter, clutching Wado and Kaitetsu 3 in his sleep like a child holds a teddy bear, dressed in all pink and with a cowboy hat on. Sanji was resting against the side of the building under a window in his swimwear, though passed out may have been more accurate if the blood on his front and steadily dripping from his nose was of any indication. He was muttering about beautiful women, shitty monkeys, and swans. Finally, Robin was sleeping peacefully in one of the lawn chairs, a book in some other language resting in her lap and Chopper in her arms. Off to the side, Tilestone and Cuckoo were still locked in the middle of an arm wrestling contest despite the fact that the latter was asleep and the former still fully awake. It was amazing that the large man's growling aggravation hadn't woken anyone yet. The rest of the foremen were nowhere to be found, probably having gone home to sleep. Mary gave a content sigh with a dismissive shake of her head and burrowed herself deeper into her uncle's side, thinking that she could get used to this. She'd liked being their ship, but she loved being a crew member so much more. Chapter 61, Thousand Sunny Set Sail. The Straw Hats spent the next 3 days learning everything they could about Mary as well as helping her figure out what sort of fighting style she wanted to use, at least, after getting over their hangovers. They still weren't sure where that pineapple had come from. Originally, Usopp had been completely against the idea of his precious Mary going into battle if he could help it, but he was overruled by numbers and logic, whether he liked it or not. Mary was now a pirate and pirates had to fight for their lives. It was at that point that Mary began experimenting. As a Clabatterman, Mary had the innate ability to control ship parts like magic. How else would she have been able to sail herself to an ice lobby? But, due to her small size on account of her having been a caravel, she could only control a small amount of items at a time. Her personal favorite were cannonballs, but those were one-use items, so she began practicing with rope, instead. Polly became a great asset when he wasn't helping Frankie, Iceberg, Cuckoo, and the others with the building of the Straw Hats' new ship. Usopp never did let up on his doting. Where the others had quickly returned to their normal selves, only with Mary as new gear in their well-oiled machine, Usopp continued to treat her like she was his own flesh and blood. In all honesty, Mary loved it. She could frequently be found getting piggyback rides from the sniper or riding on his shoulders, laughing with him about this and that. Mary was determined to do all the things that she never could as a ship. The 3 days passed quickly, bringing their total time in water 7 to 8 days. The final day came with the announcement that their new ship was ready. Grabbing their stuff, as well as the 10.5 million beers they had left over after partying and shopping for Mary, the pirates were out the door and ready to see their new home. Zanbai and the rest of the Frankie family stopped them outside, however. Straw Hats! Zanbai yelled, panting. Big news. What is it? Koby asked, him in his Dino mode to carry the tangerine trees as well as his stuff. New bounties came out. You're all wanted. All of us? Usopp screamed, grabbing Mary in a protective hug. I guess not all of you, Zanbai amended, pointedly looking at Mary, but everyone that was a key player at an ice lobby got a bounty. Look. Straw Hat Monkey D. Luffy, 300 million beerus. Pirate Hunter Uranoa Zoro, 120 million beerus. Trihorn Koby, 65 million beerus. Long Nose Usopp, 30 million beerus. Blackleg Sanji, photo unavailable, 77 million beerus. Electric Demon Jin, 100 million beerus. Cat Burglar Monkey D. Nami, 30 million beerus. Mood Painter Grace Marigold, 20 million beerus. Weightless Woman Amy Pallant, 28 million beerus. Monster Dr. Tony Chopper, 25 million beerus. Devil Child Nico Robin, 80 million beerus. Cyborg Frankie, 44 million beerus. Luffy's, Zoro's, and Koby's wanted posters were the same, the only difference an updated human picture for the zone of the three from their stunt on the Judicial Island. In the picture, Koby was smirking with Zoro's back behind him, wind whipping his clothes to the right. Usopp's picture was taken right after he shot at the Marine's flag, the fiery shockwave racing out behind him. It was a rather badass picture for The coward. Sanji's picture was not so much a picture, but more of a terrible drawing, you know the one. Jin's picture was one of him from the battle on the bridge, shooting lightning at one of the battleships with a crazed look in his eye and a demented smile. Nami's picture was from the party, her in her bikini and smiling brightly as Luffy pecked her on the cheek, his arms wrapped around her, from behind. Grace's picture was also from the bridge, Marines arrayed behind her with various expressions while the girl's eyes were shaded by her hat, her paintbrush in her hand thrown out to the side. Amy's poster had her kicking a Marine in the balls while the two were in the air, a sadistic grin on her face. Luckily for the Marine, his face was blurred out. Chopper's had a picture of him, diving into cotton candy at the celebration party, the innocent act completely at odds with the largish bounty. Robin's picture was also updated, her having her arms crossed while Marines were being bent over backwards behind her. Finally, Frankie's was just him screaming, "This is awesome." Luffy grinned. "I wonder how much we're worth in total." "This is terrible." Nami cried. "And why am I, Monkey D. Nami? Although, that is a nice picture." "Fufufu," Robin chuckled. "I suppose that, by all technicality, you and the captain are married now." "Nami Swan is married? But why?" the navigator demanded. "It's not a big deal," Luffy waved off, wrapping an arm around his girlfriend, now technically wife. He planted a kiss on her cheek. "At least now I can tell everyone you're mine." Nami blushed, but did not respond. "I think, Captain Luffy, that the right way to say that is that you are hers," Koby quipped. "We went over that in the rainbow mist." "How did they know that Chopper is our doctor?" Zoro questioned, an eyebrow lifting at the 25 million berry bounty. "And how did they get all of our names?" "I might have been interviewed during the party," Amy chuckled, awkwardly, fiddling with her parasol. "They asked questions about us and I was drunk enough to answer them. I remember getting paid in some way, too. So that's where all those lemons came from." Jin gasped. "Why is my name Longnose?" Usopp demanded, his fists crinkling the edges of his poster. "Didn't I do enough for a cooler nickname? What the heck?" The sniper censored himself. Sure, he knew that technically Mary had heard all of them curse, and more in the case of two specific people. But she still looked like a little girl to him and he wanted to keep her that way. "Yours reads high offender for the burning of marine flags, Usopp," Koby pointed out, reading the words over the sniper's shoulder. "That means your bounty is more out of insult than battle prowess. It does have a cool picture, though. Why is mine a drawing?" Sanji sulked. He was not having a good day. "Wow." Luffy blinked. "It looks just like you, Sanji." "No it doesn't." The cook shouted over Zoro's laughter. "It's not even a good drawing," Grace commented. "I mean really. These pencil markings are so shabby. I could make a better picture with my feet." "Grace, look," Amy cooed. "You and I have awesome nicknames. Mood Painter is so much cooler than anything like Trihorn." "Hey!" Koby whined. "Not nice." "Zoro and I reached 100 million, Jin smirked. "Sorry, Sanji." Robin giggled at the cook who became even more depressed. "Altogether, we are worth 875 million beerus," Chopper offered. "I have a feeling that number will go up soon," Koby muttered. "Captain Luffy's got that look in his eye, not the look." Usopp gasped theatrically before actually gasping. "Oh crap. The government knows my face. Shiitake mushrooms. At least Kain now has a picture of you," Zoro smirked, Longnose. "How are you guys taking this so calm?" Zanbai questioned before shaking his head. "Never mind. We need to ask you all a favor. Please, take Big Bro Frankie with you." He paused. "Oh, and, congratulations," he added to Luffy and Nami. "Why?" Usopp demanded, dropping his poster in favor of pulling Mary close. "Yeah, Frankie was a cyborg, and that was awesome, but he was also an unrepentant pervert. Usopp wanted that Speedo wearing hentai nowhere near his little Mary." On the other side of the group, the look in Luffy's eye got brighter. "Big Bro's wanted now," Zanbai yelled, hysterically. "Everyone in Water 7 knows his face. He'd never be safe here. With you all, however. Heard and accepted," Luffy stated with his contagious grin. "I'll go ask him right now." "That brings our total up to 919 million beerus," Robin commented. "Luffy, no. Usopp tried. Think of the children." "But I like Frankie," Mary countered from the sniper's arms. "And he's a cyborg." "That's so cool." "He won't go if you just ask," QA sighed. "Big Bro wants to go with you," Mazu picked up, "but he doesn't want to leave us alone. You'll have to force him to accept." "In that case, I've got the perfect plan," Luffy smirked. The ship that the shipwrights of Water 7 had built was amazing. It was a brig sloop a total of 2.5 times as big as Mary had been and painted red, yellow, and white with a big, circular door on each side with a red one. The deck was unique, covered with live grass, a couple of trees with a swing set, and a hidden pool. The pathway to the aft deck was a stairway up on one side and a slide down the other. The inside was filled with several special rooms including, but not limited to, a dining hall, kitchen with an aquarium, a doctor's office, men and women's bedrooms, and a workshop, another 2 layers set on top of the doors on the deck, the second floor with 3 different doors and the third with only one painted with the Jolly Roger. The top of the main mast held the crow's nest which doubled as both a weight training area and an observatory while the community bathroom was at the end of the ship. A secondary mast poked out from over the 3rd floor, the black flag of the Straw Hat Pirates flying proudly from the top of both masts. The figurehead looked like a lion with crossbones under it and a large paw on either side, though Iceberg kept insisting that he thought it was a sunflower. The steering wheel was just behind it on the bow, a giant log pose set into the floor beside the wheel for easy viewing. The Straw Hat crew was all over the place, exploring their new home while the Frankie family put Luffy's terrifying, brilliantly stupid plan into action. Iceberg watched them scurry with a smile. The only Straw Hat not on the ship, Frankie notwithstanding, was Koby, who was on the ground talking with Cuckoo, giving him advice about controlling his zone powers. The two that had hit it off at Inai's lobby had taken to hanging together since turning into the best of friends in a short amount of time. Question. Nami called, poking her head out of the women's bedroom. "Why are there only 4 beds in here when there are 5 women on the crew?" "Well, that's because you aren't sleeping in there with the other women," Iceberg chuckled. "Yours and Straw Hat's master bedroom is on the 3rd level. It's the door with the Jolly Roger." "What?" Nami croaked. Luffy bounced over from where he had been enjoying the lawn deck. "Did I hear my name?" "You did, Straw Hat," Iceberg nodded. "I was just telling your wife about the room you two will be sharing. Congratulations, by the way. Well, it is equipped with an extra-large king-sized bed, appropriate for the future king of pirates, a private bathroom and shower, a map-making table with all the essentials, and extra soundproofing among other things." Did you just say soundproofing?" Nami stuttered, her face coloring. "Well, of course," the blue-haired man smirked. "We can't have you two waking your crew with the kind of noises I heard coming from the bedrooms during the party, now can we? I was certain I locked those, by the way." "Whose idea was it for me to room with Luffy?" "Mine," the captain smiled. "After what happened during the party he was cut off, the orange-haired girl punching him over the head." "Ow," Luffy whined. "What was that for? Why didn't you ask me?" Nami demanded, hands on her hips. "I thought it was a good idea, and when I talked to Frankie, he said it's better to axe forgery than germinations or something like that." Nami stormed away toward her orchard with a huff, red-faced and completely embarrassed. It wasn't that she was against the idea, it was just so unexpected. Luffy, unabashed, turned to the blue-haired man and asked how to get to their room so he could try out the new, shared bed. When Frankie fell from the sky with nothing to cover his modesty, Usopp shoved Mary into the women's quarters and refused to let her out on the grounds of preserving her innocence. Ow! Franky yelled, making no move to cover his nether regions as he chooses his way out of the scrap heap he landed in. You bastards are going to super pay for that one. Put some pants on. Usopp yelled, ignoring Mary's shouts to let her out or the thumping on the door behind him. If they had been on the going Mary, she would have been able to just pass through the wall, but now she was grounded to her heart and couldn't fade into the ship. She could, however, release her physical body, which was a manifestation of her soul, and hide inside her heart, but that wouldn't let her get through walls. There are children watching. Oi! Luffy yelled, jumping up to stand on the railing with Franky's single pair of briefs in his hand. If you want your pants back, you have to join my crew. Like I care. Franky waved off. I don't need my briefs. The Franky family did say we would need to get forceful, Koby mused. Allow me, Captain, Robin smiled sadistically. Das Fleur, grab. Every male in the vicinity winced at the sound of Franky's wail. Robin had sprouted 2 arms from the cyborg's legs and proceeded to grab and squeeze his batteries. Franky collapsed, screaming to the highest heavens. Kai ha ha ha. Robin. Luffy gasped over Amy's sadistic laughter. I want him to still be a man when he joins. That's too cruel, Koby winced, covering his own protectively. Stop it, Robin. Chopper pleaded. That can't be good for him. She's going to crush them. Kiwi gasped. Like little grapes. Mazu added on. Let me go. Franky cried, trying and failing to stand up through the pain. I will do no such thing until you comply with my captain's order, Robin's even voice answered over the shipwright's pain-filled cries. I won't join you. Franky tried to protest. There are too many things I have to finish here. No there aren't. Zanbai denied, a packed bag dropping to the ground next to the head of the Franky family. We know what you want in your heart, bro. You're safer with them. You morons. The cyborg yelled. What would you do without me? Iceberg was nice enough to offer us work at Galila. One of the half-giants answered. He said something about having people just for dismantling, freeing up more shipwrights for, mandling. Construction, Zanbai corrected. Yeah, that. Go on, big bro. Kiwi urged. They need you more than us, Mazu added. But she's going to crush them. Like little acorns. Franky, Iceberg cut in, stepping ahead of Polly, Tilestone, Lulu, and a kneeling Cuckoo. The only reason you want to stay here is because you still blame yourself for Tom's death and you're trying to punish yourself. We know you aren't really happy here. We've known for months. These pirates, they're your ticket to the freedom you want. I gave them my ship of dreams, Franky shot back, wincing. My job is done. No, it's not. Iceberg shook his head. I remember when you first told us about that dream. You said that once you'd built your dream ship, then you'd join that crew to make sure it made it to the end of the world. You've built the ship, now, do the rest of it. Iceberg. Franky whispered. He broke down, clutching his manhood and crying about it hurting so much, tears flowing from his eyes. It hurts. Oh, Goda, it fucking hurts. What? She's going to crush them. Like little cantaloupes. Robin. Luffy whined. I thought I told you to stop. I let go a long time ago, Robin waved off. You better wash your hands, Zoro quipped. We don't know where those things have been. You mean he's faking it? Chopper questioned. It's his excuse to cry, Jin offered. Anyone who calls himself a man will refuse to cry out of emotion. Franky? He's trying to pass it off as pain. It's not working too well, Amy laughed. Yeah, Jin chuckled. Don't tell him that. All right, Franky. Luffy yelled, throwing the man's briefs to him. Get on my ship. Your ship, huh? Franky laughed, wiping the last few tears out of his eyes. Fine. An amateur like you would sink her in a week without a ship, right? The Marines are coming. Someone in the crowd yelled. Hurry up. Luffy ordered. Everyone set sail. We're getting out of here. Frankie scrambled on board, hastily putting his garment back on so Usopp could let their little wood ferry out. Hey, Wind! Koby called over the side of the ship. If the Marines find you, or if you ever need a place to go, you're welcome to join us. I'd convince Captain Luffy to let you on. Thanks, little man. Koby called back, but I think my place is here. I'll see you cool cats again if you return to Water 7. Good luck out there. And remember what I told you. It's definitely there. I expect to hear good news soon. You've got my number? Yeah. I still don't think you are right about that, but I hope so. Thanks, Wind. Turning away, Koby joined the rest of the crew as they prepared for departure. The pirates scurried about, Mary's ship powers being no small boon to their efficiency since she could control up to a third of the ship at any time. Grace glanced at Koby, from where she was checking the knots on the tied-down supplies, an eyebrow raised. Wind? My nickname for Koby, he answered with a grunt, pulling a rope into place. They call him the Spring Wind, I just shortened it. I learned a lot from him this week. Like what? Grandpa's here. Luffy yelled, interrupting their conversation as a marine battleship with a dog figurehead rounded the island. Luffy. Garp called through a microphone. I know you can hear me. Just surrender and I can pull some strings to get you and your friends enlisted in the Navy. He paused. Congratulations, by the way. He added. I'm so proud of you. Now join the Marines. No way. Luffy shouted. I'm gonna be the king of the pirates. And he says he can recognize lost causes? Amy sighed quietly. That family, Jin agreed with a shake of his head. I didn't want to have to do this, but apparently not catching you because you're my grandson didn't fly with Sengoku, so I'll have to send you, your friends, and your wife to a watery grave. I'll send a gift later if you survive. Meteor Fist. A cannonball faster than any the pirates had ever seen whizzed by just behind their new ship. They all gasped, Mary especially. She hadn't even had time to try to take control of it. Hardening her gaze, the Clabbatterman planted herself where she could see all of the oncoming projectiles. Another volley raced toward the ship as Mary thrust her hands forward, the iron balls slowing until they came to a stop hovering over the ocean. I am the spirit of the Going Mary, the original ship of the Straw Hat Pirates, she shouted, hoping her voice reached the Marines. The cannonballs began spinning around each other, shocking the people watching. I sailed myself to save my family from the destruction of Inai's lobby and, as long as I'm around, no one will harm my Nakama with cannons. Cannonball barrage. With her final declaration, the little girl threw the cannonballs back toward the Marines. Even though the projectiles weren't as fast as when Garp had thrown them and said man was able to easily deal with them, Mary smiled at getting her point across. Who knew? Maybe she'd get a bounty for this. Mary! Usopp cried, pulling her from the railing. Are you nuts? What if they got a picture of you? Then I'd have a better wanted poster than Sanji. Mary laughed, the chef sinking to the grassy deck, at how true the statement was. And I'd have a cooler epithet than you. Usopp joined Sanji in their wallowing of self-pity. More are headed this way. Zoro yelled, cutting two cannonballs in half with a flying slash. Next to him, Jin had managed to condense lightning into pellets and was firing them out of finger pistols to blow up whatever projectiles he could. Hey, Frankie! Koby shouted, flying slashes of his own redirecting cannonballs. Does this thing have a quick escape? Sure does. The cyborg called back, a weapons left blowing a trio of projectiles out of the air. But we can't leave yet. This is the ship's maiden voyage. She can't leave the island without a name. But what will we call her? It? Amy questioned, batting a cannonball upward with her umbrella. Do all ships have a gender? Well, Iceberg suggested the Thousand Sunny, Something about sailing 1,000 sunny days to the end of the earth, but personally, I'm all for Super Battle Frankie Lion King Alpha. The 1,000 sunny. Luffy yelled ecstatically, ignoring the sounds of exploding cannonballs. Hey, Mary? Does the ship like her name? I can't answer that, Mary responded, flicking a dozen cannonballs to the right so they missed the ship. She isn't alive. We haven't had her long enough for her to start having a Clabatterman, yet. And honestly, Amy, I'm not sure how ship gender works. Most ships are assumed female, but that doesn't mean there can't be male ships as well. We'll just have to wait until Sunny has enough consciousness to tell us. Oh. Luffy seemed disappointed, but he bounced back quickly. She'll be called the 1,000 Sunny. And she'll be a she until we're told otherwise because that's easier. Frankie, hit the emergency what's it? Alright, Frankie sulked. No one was listening to his Frankie-themed suggestion. I'll need about 30 seconds. Lil sis, get the sails furled. Sure thing, big bro. Mary responded, grabbing a rope and having it pull her upwards. We've got you covered, Usopp cheered, knocking 3 balls out of the air with well-placed gunpowder stars. The cannonballs continued to rain down on the pirate vessel, but, try as he might, Garp could only throw so fast. The Straw Hat's teamwork easily kept up with his steady stream of attacks. Finally, Garp brought out the ball and chain, a chain connected to an iron ball even bigger than the marine ship itself. Where he'd kept it, the pirates hadn't a clue. Frankie. Chopper wailed. Hurry. We're ready. The shipwright called, pink energy accumulating in a large vent at the back of the ship. This thing takes 3 barrels of cola, but thanks to the durability of the atom wood, Sunny will be able to withstand the pressure. No way. Mary gasped, feeling the power building up in the ship below her feet. Kuda burst. Frankie pulled a lever, releasing all the energy that had built up. He wasn't a moment too soon, the ship shooting away into the air just before the shadow of Garp's ridiculously big weapon passed over it. They were flying. No offense, Lil sis, Frankie began, the rest of the crew marveling at the fact that they were flying once more, but the 1,000 Sunny is better than you ever were as a ship. She's my super masterpiece and she'll be known as the greatest ship ever built. I was never made for this, Mary idly waved off, leaning over the railing to watch the ocean race past. Usopp was behind her in an instant, his arms making sure she didn't fall off. The ship splashed down a kilometer away, both Water 7 and the Marines long out of sight. Quickly, Sanji scrounged up a feast and Luffy raised a glass. Here's to having Robin back, to our 2 new crew members Frankie and Mary, my unofficial marriage, and to our new ship the 1,000 Sunny. Cheers. Cheers. Everyone chorused, their mugs coming together between them. Chapter 62, Omake, Bounty Reactions. You all wanted it, so here it is, some of the reactions to the Straw Hats raid of Eni's Lobby and their bounties. Hometown happenings, Kokoyashi Village. It was a beautiful morning in the small village of Kokoyashi of the Konami Islands. There wasn't a cloud in the sky to be seen against the early morning sunlight, but a light breeze tickled the buildings as it blew through the town, just strong enough to make the pirate flag proudly flying in the village center flutter. The symbol of the Straw Hat Pirates danced in the wind, its mere presence a constant warning to any on the seas with ill will toward the island's inhabitants. From the far west came a flock of news COO, the intelligent carrier birds swooping low to drop their cargo to the people of the village before curving back the way they'd come. Trying to rub the weariness from his eyes, an old man covered in scars was the first one out that morning. The breeze spun a pinwheel stuck into his old, maroon, military hat, but the man took no notice as he yawned. Stretching his arms over his head, he bent down to scoop up the closest newspaper, a headline larger than any he'd seen before covering the front page. Simply glancing at the word shocked the man, ridding him of any leftover lingerings of sleep. Straw Hat Pirates declare war on Eni's Lobby, when everybody get the hell out here now. Genzo yelled at the top of his voice, everyone in the village responding immediately to the order of their de facto mayor. "It's 7 in the morning," a random villager complained, rubbing his eyes. "What's so important you couldn't let us sleep 10 more minutes?" Nami and the others just pulled off something big. Genzo answered in a yell. They made the front page. "The Straw Hat Pirates," a woman read aloud from a newspaper, "are an extremely dangerous pirate group last confirmed to number 11 people and are under the command of Straw Hat Monkey D. Luffy. 2 days ago, they and approximately 75 others led a raid on the judicial island of Anai's Lobby. All civilians that had been on the island had been evacuated prior to the attack due to security reasons, so there were no civilian casualties. However, casualties among the Marines number several thousand and the entire island was destroyed. Complete statistics are still being calculated. This is one of the darkest days in the history of the Marines," said Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Another villager took over. "To think a single pirate group of that size could do this much damage alone is impossible. The destruction of Anai's Lobby is not the result of military action, but the insufficient quality of Cyberpole No. 9 and the reckless behavior of the agents and their superior. While the agents could not be found in the wreckage and are presumed dead, their commander is being disciplined at Marineford despite his broken back. Nothing like this will ever happen again, I assure you." The reason for the pirates' attack is unknown at this time. Current suspicions deem this attack to have been unprovoked. "I call bullshit on that," a man shouted. More details on the attack and the pirates in question can be found inside, the reader finished. "There are wanted posters," an elderly woman commented, taking the small stack from a paper her son was holding. The top poster showed the smiling face of the village's savior, a 9-digit number sitting beneath his name. "Their doctor is adorable," a woman gushed, holding up Shopper's wanted poster. "Look at how cute this guy is. That Koby brat sure has grown up a lot," the town's doctor blinked. "Good for him." "Luffy recruited the infamous Nico Robin," another man commented with a smirk. "First the demon butcher Uranoa Zoro, then the man-demon Jin, and now the devil child." "Check again," the man's wife corrected, holding up another poster. "Jin's the electric devil now." "What's with all the commotion?" Nojiko yawned, the blue-haired sister of Nami wandering into the impromptu village meeting. A newspaper was shoved into her face, the woman scanning it quickly. Genzo?" a teen boy asked. "You may want to see this." "What is it?" the man demanded, snatching the page out of the boy's shaking hand. He took one look at the poster and promptly froze. There, for all the world to see, was the pride of Kokoyashi on her own poster. But that couldn't be right. They got the name wrong. Wanted dead or alive, cat burglar Monkey D. Nami 30 million Beerus. The picture would have been deemed sweet by anyone other than the girl's surrogate father. Nami was the center of the picture, though she was sharing it with her captain. The top of a bikini could be made out at the bottom of the photo, but most of it was covered by the arms of the raven-haired boy hugging her from behind. Luffy's head was turned toward her, his lips pressed into her cheek. Nami was smiling brightly at whatever he'd said before that, a gleam in her cracked eyes. It didn't seem like she knew that the camera was there. "They're adorable together," Nojiko praised over Genzo's shoulder. "I'm so happy for her. We should send them something to congratulate them. I wish I could have been there for the wedding, though." "Gijum," Genzo gurgled. "Genzo. Imagidum. Hey, Doc. I think we've got a problem." The doctor shuffled over, waving his hand in front of the unresponsive man's face. Without warning, Genzo's eyes rolled into the back of his head and he crumbled. "Genzo." Genzo woke up in the doctor's office that evening, Nojiko humming to herself as she sewed something at his bedside. He groaned as consciousness returned, now aware of a painful throb in his chest. Genzo tried to sit up, but Nojiko gently forced him back down. "You've got strict orders not to move," the billionaire told him with no room for argument. "What happened?" the older man asked, wincing at the pain talking caused. "You didn't take your blood pressure medicine this morning," the woman answered. "You had a heart attack." "Damn," he grunted. "It must have messed up my head. I had the worst dream. Oh? I dreamt that Nami got her own poster, but it said that she was married to Straw Hat. Genzo shook his head. Weird, right? Nojiko blinked at him. That wasn't a dream. It was the shock that caused the heart attack. Jerk. Clutching at his heart, Genzo flopped back on the bed. Damn it. Not again. Doc, get back in here. Finn. Fushaw Village. The little town of Fushaw Village on Dawn Island was in an uproar, a village-wide party originating from Party's bar near the center of town. In the midst of this were a certain group of mountain bandits, the leader of which couldn't stop her tears as she guzzled mug after mug of alcohol. Didin was a large woman with bushy red hair, her intimidating frame at odds with the way she was acting at the moment as she cried into her drink. That little brat, she wailed. He didn't even bother to send us a note. How dare he? It is quite surprising that Luffy's married now, Makino, the bartender, responded, sending a bright smile to the redhead that she did not see. I doubt it's official, though. There isn't a ring on Luffy's hand. Didn's tears dried instantly, the woman turning to the two posters on the wall behind the bar. One of them held the grinning face of Monkey D. Luffy while the other was of the team's navigator. Looking past the family name on the second poster, the bandit focused on the hand shown. Indeed, neither of Luffy's hands in the photo showed any kind of jewelry, rings or otherwise. Didin was silent for a moment, blinking slowly. Those government bastards. Getting me so riled up over nothing. I'm gonna give Garp peace of my mind next time he shows up. Through it all, Makino quietly laughed at Didin's rage and the town's grumbling mayor in the corner, whining about Luffy ruining Fushaw's reputation with a hidden smile. Finn. Syrup Village, he did it. Three small voices cried as they ran through the usually quiet town of Syrup Village. The captain did it. He's a brave warrior of the sea. Would you brats, keep it down? An older woman yelled through her window. I thought we were free from this when that good-for-nothing liar left, only for you kids to take his place. What you say about Captain Usopp? Carrot yelled back. Yeah. Pepper agreed. The captain's a wanted man now. He's worth 30 million. All the more reason you shouldn't follow in his footsteps. The woman grumbled. Oh. Onion blinked. Let's go tell Miss Kaya. Mary won't get their mail for another hour. With a trio of nods, the boys dashed through the town, celebrating their captain's achievement. Reaching the mansion, they quieted down and moved around the back, entering through Usopp's old entrance. They scurried across the grounds before shimmying up the tree outside Kaya's window. Miss Kaya, the boys called, stealing the girl's attention from the medical textbook before her. The blonde looked much healthier and radiant than when the Straw Hats had left with her significant other so long ago. Pepper, carrot, onion, she greeted. What's up? He did it. Usopp got a bounty. Carrot pushed the poster he was holding through the window and into the girl's hand. She looked down at it with something akin to shock before breaking out into a genuine smile. How wonderful. I think I should call later to congratulate him. Would you all like to be there? Yes, please. Finn, unknown island in the New World. From the world's viewpoint, the Yonko of the pirates were four powerful, serious people, each of them having enough strength between them and their crews to destroy entire kingdoms. Well, they were sort of right. As powerful and serious as Kaido, Big Mom, and even Whitebeard can be, Red Hair Shanks never fit the norm. The man and his crew of extremely powerful pirates were currently all passed out throughout a forest, having partied the night before. There wasn't even a lookout as a man calmly walked through the ranks of passed-out pirates. Moving silently, the man came to a stop before the form of the one-armed pirate captain who was snoring while sleeping on a fallen log, much like how he had been last time the man tracked down Shanks. Sighing heavily, Hawkeye Mihawk kicked the ginger off the log. Shanks woke up with a gasp, his hockey-covered arm instantly shooting out to attack whomever had decided to wake him up. Mihawk didn't bat an eye, his own hockey, countering the Emperor's fist. Shanks blinked at his friend tiredly, not recognizing him for a moment until his eyes widened. "Mihawk!" the Yonko yelled, waking some of his crew. "It's been too long. What brings you to our little neck of the woods? Do you recall that child you once told me would succeed your old captain?" Mihawk's voice was calm and quiet, the total opposite of Shanks. "Is this about Luffy? I sure hope that Anchor didn't go get himself killed." "Quite the contrary," Mihawk answered. "It seems he and his crew are doing exceedingly well." The man who held the title of world's greatest swordsman reached into his robe and pulled out a stack of papers, passing them to the man as his closest friends gathered around him. 300 million? Shanks gasped with a grin. "You sure outdid yourself, Luffy?" "Hey, Yesip," Lucky Roo asked. "What was the name of your boy again? The one you left behind in the East Blue?" "Usopp," Yesip answered with a bright smile. "I remember when I left, he told me he wanted to be just like me when he grew up. But if he did, I think I'd have a heart attack at the thought of the dangers he'd face here on the Grand Line." "Then go get a doctor, 'cause you're gonna have that heart attack." The round man shoved one of the papers in the sniper's face, Yesip snatching it out of his hand. "Long nose, Usopp?" the boy's father demanded. "How dare those government dogs make a mockery of Brina's proud nose? I'll fill them with enough holes to make Swiss cheese jealous, but go to Dom, that's a good picture." "Hey, Cab," Ben Beckman called. "You might want to see this. Looks like Luffy went and got himself hitched." "Well, I'll be," Shanks barked, glancing at the poster of the cat burglar in his first mate's hand. "So much for being the fruest man in the world. At least she's a looker." Reaching out, the Yonko grabbed a flagon and filled it with beer from a nearby barrel. "This calls for a celebration. Were you not hungover from the party you obviously just finished?" Mihawk quirked an eyebrow, barely shifting as the pirate captain threw his lone arm around his shoulder. "But now we've got an even better reason to party. To Luffy's lost innocence and his lost freedom. Cheers." Chapter 63, Bonus Chapter, Captain Wallace. Author's Note: Hello, all. It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm afraid this isn't a chapter, not a real one, anyway. It's kind of a side story I decided to make for shits and giggles, but I hope you all will enjoy it. Thriller Bark is still not coming out the way I wanted to, and being in college isn't helping with that, but I decided that you all deserved something after all this time. I've had this for a while now, for a time such as this, so here it is. If it makes it any funnier, the Marine captain and his lieutenant in this are me and my best friend respectively. Bonus Chapter: High Seas Hijinks, Proof, set after Skypia, Pirates. A voice shouted, echoing over the softly rolling waves of the ocean. "You are under arrest. Surrender peacefully and you will not be harmed. You have my word as Marine Captain Wallace of Division 517. This is your last warning." All activity on the Going Merry slowed to a stop at the announcement, each crew member glancing at each other in confusion. Koby, who had been placed on rigging duty by Zoro to train his speed and dexterity, eyed the seas around them until his gaze fell upon the Marine ship trailing them. Said ship was completely average for its make and model, the only difference being the dolphin figurehead on the front and the numbers 517, painted as background for the Marine logo on the sails. "Incoming Marines, 6 o'clock. Koby called down, jumping from the lines and rolling away his extra momentum. "We know," Usopp yelled. "If you do not comply," Captain Wallace's voice called, "then we will be forced to attack. This is your last warning. Don't you just love how they always think they're going to win?" Amy smirked, her umbrella shading her bikini-clad form as she lounged on a beach chair, reading through chocolate recipes from a cooking magazine. "I don't know which is worse, their true confidence or Longnose's lack thereof." Now, Jin chuckled, examining his newly golden-capped weighted tonfa from where he was polishing them on the deck. "They've never met a crew like us before. I'm sure their captain is some sort of big shot in these waters. Wake me up when it's dinner time." Zoro yawned beside him. or if you get some booze off of their ship. We are running a little low on provisions, Sanji muttered. But they have way more cannons than we do. Usopp fretted. So? Luffy asked even as a cannonball from the Navy ship splashed into the water off the port bow, dousing Zoro. The green-haired man didn't so much as twitch in his sleep. That was your last warning. Wallace's voice yelled. Keep it down out there. Nami shouted from within her map room. I'm trying to finish my map of Skypia, and if you morons make me ruin it, I'll send you all there the hard way. Nami Swan's voice is beautiful when she's threatening us. Hey, Captain Luffy? Koby asked, distracting Luffy from whatever he was going to say to the cook. Would you mind if I tried taking on these guys on my own? Are you crazy? Usopp gasped. Sure thing, Koby, Luffy answered with a shrug. Why, though? I want to test myself, the Rosette answered. After that stunt Jin pulled in Skypia, I feel like I need to prove myself to the crew, to show that I deserve a place here. You don't have to prove anything, Luffy began. But I feel like I do, Koby finished. If not to you, then to myself. Please, at least let me try. Another cannonball hit the water, this time off the starboard side, splashing Usopp. That was your final warning. Wallace repeated. So how are you going to get there, Koby? Grace questioned. We took down Usopp's giant slingshot during the party after we beat Eneru. Captain Luffy will throw me, obviously, Koby scoffed, before freezing. Why was that sentence way too normal? Here we go. Luffy cheered, grabbing the hood of Koby's jacket and pulling him toward the mast. Luffy's other arm shot out, grabbing the top of the upper deck, roughly lining up with the Navy ship behind them. Wait! Koby cried. Wait, wah! Gum catapult! Koby vanished as Luffy rebounded back onto the deck with a thump, the boy's scream echoing through the air. The wind whistled past the Rosette's ears as he flew through the air, lucky enough that the patented Straw Hat misfortune granted him an all-expenses-paid experience to his face meeting the wood of a Navy ship. It was a testament to Zoro's training methods that it was the wood that caved before Koby's face, the boy not even losing a drop of blood. What the hell? The majority of the Marines gaped, staring at the pirate that had quite literally just fallen out of the sky. Surrender! Wallace ordered Koby through his microphone. This is your final warning. Captain Wallace was a man of average height with short, light brown hair that rose in the front with a small cowlick from a widow's peak. A pair of thick glasses set on the man's nose, making his brown eyes seem far too large for his face. He had a lanky frame covered in khaki pants and a dark blue shirt with 4 dolphins arranged in a counterclockwise circle so their tail fins just touched. The tips of the left and right dolphins were covered by the Marine captain's coat worn as a cape, and what seemed to be orange tennis shoes covered his feet. His visible weapons included a bow staff that poked out over his right shoulder and a sword strapped to his hip, and he was using a blue umbrella as a cane, though it didn't appear like he needed it to walk. That last one might not be a weapon, but you never knew with people like Amy around. Next to Wallace stood a man who had more meat in his bones than his captain. This man had dark brown hair and a crew cut, and dark eyes which stared off into the distance. His Marine uniform was normal save for all the blue being replaced with red. A katana in a black sheath hung at his side, bouncing in time with the tapping of his foot to some rhythm or another from the west blue. Captain Wallace of the 5th 17th. I take it? Koby questioned, making eye contact with the first man. Tryhorn Koby of the Straw Hat, Pirates, I believe. The Marine all but parroted. Are you a sacrifice? Afraid not, the boy responded, growing into his hybrid mode and grabbing his swords. I'm the cavalry. Get him, men. Wallace ordered, 20 or so of the Marines on the deck pulling out their Marine standard issue swords and charging. Dragon Twister. Koby spun, the small gale he created lifting a dozen Marine grunts into the air. The rest stopped to stare at their flailing shipmates, awed by the fact that someone could do that. Impressive, Wallace noted. I suppose it will take more skill to take you down. Lieutenant Kenneth. The man beside him blinked. Please deal with this intruder. When did he get here? Lieutenant Kenneth gasped. He's a dinosaur. That's so cool. Slow, isn't he? Koby commented. Not at all, Wallace denied. In fact, he's quite intelligent. He just gets distracted sometimes. I'll show you. Kenneth declared. No pirates will wreck our ship while I'm— Hey, look. A bird. Lieutenant Kenneth actually looked up as a seagull landed on the mast before turning back to the zone. Where was I? Oh. No pirates will wreck our ship while I'm around. Pulling his katana from its sheath, Kenneth charged the pirate with an overhead swing. Koby blocked with his left sword before spinning, smashing the blunt end of its pair into the Marine's gut. Kenneth stumbled backwards a few steps, wheezing. Ow. He grunted. That hurt. Isn't that the point of a fight? The zone replied. To hurt each other? Kenneth did not respond and charged once more, this time coming in with a horizontal slash. Koby readied another block. Squirrel. The Marine's sudden outburst caught Koby by surprise, allowing the lieutenant's sword to scratch him as the man ran by to the railing of the ship, his eyes dashing around in search of the forest creature. Wait a second, he blinked. Squirrels don't live on the ocean. No duh. Koby nearly yelled. He was used to the scrap from his nakama, not the Marines. Taking a deep breath, Koby shrunk into human form and sprinted across the deck, shoulder-checking the Marine lieutenant before he could bring his sword up. The katana dropped to the deck, impaling the wood as its owner tripped over the railing and tumbled into the sea. Lieutenant Kenneth. The other Marines gasped, two of them diving over the side and a third dropping a ladder. Captain Wallace hummed. So you defeated my lieutenant. That is quite a feat and I commend you, but you should give up now. This is your final warning. Bring it on, Marine, Koby stated. I'm not afraid of you. Very well, Wallace replied, throwing his umbrella to the side and unsheathing his sword. It was a broadsword with a blade decorated with 12 symbols of different colors, some of these including a yellow lightning bolt, a green trident, a silver moon, and a golden sun. If you do not fear me, then you will fear my blade. This is the Sword of the Gods, a weapon known in these waters for felling the likes of the infamous Fred the Chihuahua and Monty the Python. Are you done yet? The pirate asked. It's nearing dinner time and we need to steal some of your food. Fine, have at thee. Wallace charged, his sword out as if meaning to stab the younger man. Koby didn't even blink, twisting the sword out of his opponent's hands in less than a second. The so-called Sword of the Gods clattered to the floor. Oh come on. Koby complained childishly. I thought the captain was supposed to be the strongest member of their crew. So I embellished the tales of my swordplay, a little bit, Wallace admitted sheepishly. Pointing your sword at your pets does not mean you felled them, a sopping wet Kenneth supplied, wringing water out of his shirt by the ladder. And didn't Fred actually take it out of your— that clown looks like a den mushy. And that one's a snake. I will admit that my swordsmanship may not be at as high a level of your own. And that most pirates around here cower at my boasting and surrender by now. And that it may have ended with a stalemate in my duel against the infamous Fred the Chihuahua. But he pulled a bow staff from his back, brandishing the wooden weapon with more confidence, falling into a basic stance with body turned to the right and the bow out and downward. I have been practicing the art of the bow staff for many years. Wielding wooden weapons is in my roots, the techniques passed down in my family tree for each branch of weaponry. Were all of those puns? Koby demanded. What is your family name, Captain Wallace? Wood. Oh dear Goda, Koby sighed. Wallace Wood and the Wood family wooden weaponry. And I thought my crew was crazy. He shook his head slowly. I don't have time for this. Then attack me, pirate. Wallace ordered. I shall defeat you, for my bow is made of the densest walnut to be found within the Wood family's family woods and was crafted by the Wood family's finest and most wizened woodworkers. Now even the Wood family's famed woodpeckers could not peck a single hole through this fine walnut wood weapon. Surrender now. This is your last warning. Koby jumped in with a single overhead slash, forcing the Marine captain to raise his weapon and defend. Koby smirked. Tower climb. The Rosette yelled, sweeping his free sword up between his opponent's hands, his Sabaku no Kiba slicing through the center of the Wood family's fine wooden weapon like butter. And return. Koby finished, both of his swords coming down to remove about 8 inches from either end of the remainder of the weapon. Wallace gaped in shock as 2 pieces of his now 4-piece bow tumbled to the deck. Are we done here? Yes, Wallace squeaked, shuffling over to his lieutenant. Putting 2 fingers in his mouth, Koby let out a sharp whistle, the Going Merry turning to sail toward the Marine ship in response. None of the Marines resisted, for a single child pirate to best them all so easily was shameful and embarrassing. I told you not to attack the Straw Hat Pirates, Lieutenant Kenneth began. I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you, Wally, that Cloud totally looks like a monkey. So, for the record, Captain Wallace announced to his men, we fought Straw Hat Luffy, and no one will say otherwise. Right? Yes, sir. At least I managed to scratch him. Kenneth boasted. Hey, Wallace, Koby called. Do you have any booze on the ship? Zoro-sensei gets cranky if he doesn't have his booze. Of course not. Wallace scoffed. We Wood family men and women carry naught but the finest Wood family white wine from the Wood family winery. We make world-famous West Blue wine from wrangling only the ripest. I get it, Koby waved off. What about meat? This ship is stocked with the best of the Wood family's family woods, wild warthogs and wilder beasts. Wondrous. And you're done, Koby cut him off. Wallace opened his mouth to respond, likely with more W-based alliteration, but much to Koby's relief, the Going Merry chose that moment to pull up alongside the Marine ship, allowing Sanji and Jin to climb over the railing. He's all yours, the Rosette stated with no room for argument, already making his way back to the Merry. Don't ask him any questions about who he is. As soon as he was able, Koby jumped the railing, landing on the deck of the Merry. What's got him in it, Whist? Jin questioned. He didn't even look hurt badly. Whatever. Let's just grab the meat and alcohol and be done with it. Hey, you. He pointed at Kenneth. Where's the good stuff? Kenneth shrugged silently, gesturing at the captain beside him. Come on, Jin ordered, now pointing at the captain. Spill. I am Captain Wallace Wood. Chapter 64, The Offering and the Skeleton. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Captain, Mary sighed as she lounged on a raft in the Sunny's built-in pool while clad in a red one-piece bathing suit. Luffy was dangling his legs in the water as he watched Nami swimming laps, glancing at the ring that now glinted on his right ring finger every now and then. As terrible a parent figure Garp was, he still knew how to give gifts. He'd sent Luffy a package via package gull containing several hundred beerus, some new china, and a pair of brand new wedding rings that, after being oaked by Frankie as safe, were now worn by the monkey D.S of the crew. Usopp and Chopper sat on the railing to the side, fishing for things to put in the aquarium, and Grace was painting the two. Their shipwright was somewhere below them, building or fiddling with something, while Amy and Robin were tanning and using their charms to whittle things out of Sanji. The sounds coming from above them showed that Zoro, Koby, and Jin were sparring with each other in the crow's nest. What do you mean, Mary? Luffy asked, tilting his head. I thought you were going to let me go after Anai's lobby, Mary conceded. After you learned that my keel was broken and you decided to get a new ship, I was heartbroken, but I understood. I doubted that you would try to save me, even if you found out I was alive. That was pretty stupid of you, Mary, Luffy laughed. I'd never leave a friend to die. Shh. You're right, Captain. That was stupid of me. Bah. You know you can just call me Luffy, right? The rubber man asked. I know, the Wood Fairy answered with a shrug, but you've always been Captain Luffy to me. It's been that way since I could think. And when was that? Nami questioned, finishing her laps and resting her arms on the edge of the pool. Luffy idly placed a hand on the navigator's head and began combing through her wet hair. Since when have you been around? Mary hummed. I have small glimpses from entering the Grand Line. I know what Laboon looks like and I know we almost sung from hitting him, but the details are really blurry. So you were already forming way back then? Nami gasped. Mary nodded. I really didn't understand anything going on around me though. I only had one clear thought back then. The first big thing I remember clearly was meeting the captain's big brother Ace. That means you've been around since we got to Alabasta. Nami gaped. Yeah, Mary agreed. I think it got easier for me to think as the crew got bigger. More people means more bonds, I guess. It was really boring while you all were away, though. I almost attacked that ballet guy that came to get me until he yelled something about a flower of friendship and keeping me from the Marines to his crew. What was your first thought? Luffy inquired. Nakama, the wood fairy answered without hesitation. Luffy's face split into a grin. Up above them, one of the windows in the crow's nest shattered, dropping a human, Koby, onto the deck with a thump. Ow! Koby yelled, sitting up and pulling shards of broken glass from his back. You didn't have to hit me that hard, damn it. Language. Usopp chastised for Mary's sake. Sorry about that, Koby. Jin called down. Hey! Frankie protested as a hatch opened and his head popped out, the thump pulling him from his workshop. You guys have had this ship for only a week and you're already breaking things? Super not cool. Don't look at me, Koby denied, standing up and rubbing his sore tailbone. Jin's the one that threw me out the window. And you're the one that tried to block instead of dodging. Hey, guys. Usopp called from the railing. There's a barrel out on the ocean. So? Sanji asked. It's got a banner that reads treasure. Pull it in, Nami ordered. I'll get it. Mary offered. She hopped off of the raft and swam to the railing. Stretching out her senses, Mary latched onto the barrel, the wooden holder changing course to head toward the Thousand Sunny. Raising her hands, Mary pulled the barrel into the air and levitated it onto the deck. That's so cool. Luffy and Chopper cried at the same time, stars in their eyes. How'd you do it? She's been doing that since Water 7, Usopp deadpanned. Obviously, Ms. Ship can manipulate any object that is commonly found on sailing vessels, Robin offered, not even looking up from her book. It's most likely a common power amongst wood fairies. Treasure offering to the sea gods, Grace read aloud from the banner attached to the barrel. What's that supposed to mean? It's an old practice, Nami explained. Sailors sometimes fill barrels with preserved meats or alcohol to appease their deities in the hope of safe sailing. Meat? Luffy questioned with a sparkle in his eye. Alcohol? Zoro asked from the crow's nest, sticking his head out of the broken window. It's tradition to release another barrel after using the one you pick up so as to not anger the gods. Nami continued. Yeah, but we know that God's a dick and that we killed him, Jin grunted, dropping to the deck and rolling his momentum away. I say we use it anyway. I'm for it, Amy nodded. Then let's open this puppy. Frankie yelled, pulling out a crowbar and jamming one end under the lid. He shoved down on his side, the lip popping off with little resistance. There was no booze inside, but a red firework shot into the air before exploding. That's disappointing, Luffy whined. We can't eat fireworks. Who would stuff a firework in a barrel? Usopp gasped. Maybe it was a trap and there are bounty hunters coming after us now, Robin commented with a polite smile, turning a page in her book. Robin, that's scary. Chopper cried. No time to think about that. Nami yelled. There's a storm coming. Get ready. The words had barely registered to the other pirates when storm clouds appeared seemingly out of nowhere, bringing pelting rain and freezing winds with them. Guys! Nami screamed. Get to the sails. Mary, can you work the rudder? The wind is too strong. Mary cried, her face scrunched with concentration. The rudder won't move. Damn. Nami cursed. Don't worry, Frankie yelled. We're super prepared for this. Sunny dock system, channel 0. Activate the Sunny's paddle boat mode. He pulled a lever on the Sunny's steering wheel, turning 2 dials until they each read 0. Paddles spread out from the end of the ship and lowered into the water where they began spinning. The Thousand Sunny lurched forward and sped toward the closest sign of light. At least the rain is gone, Grace muttered, trying to be optimistic as she eyed her ruined painting of Usopp and Chopper fishing while wringing out her hat. She had been forced to change out of her regular attire due to her clothing getting soaked by the rain, so she now wore a white, long-sleeved t-shirt with crossed paintbrushes, an orange skirt with horizontal green stripes, and a pair of leggings, one leg black and the other white. She'd chosen red hiking boots as footwear and her red hair was done in a French braid rather than her usual twin braids. The Thousand Sunny had managed to escape the storm, but there was still no sun anywhere to be found. Gray clouds and a seemingly impenetrable fog surrounded the ship, obscuring any objects more than 50 meters away, which, for a ship, was really close. I don't like the looks of this place, Usopp cowered. Me either, Chopper agreed. Do you know where we are? Frankie asked with an evil smile. Granny Kokoro loved to tell stories about this place. This area has been known for mysterious disappearances for a long, long time. We're in the Florian Triangle. Over 100 ships vanish here every year with no explanation, Amy added, enjoying the looks of terror on the sniper and the doctor from where she stood next to her sister. She had also been forced to change and had replaced her yellow bikini for a yellow sundress with a pair of jean shorts underneath and a pair of pale flats. Her earrings were still in, but her hat was absent. She still had her normal umbrella. For all we know, we could be next. Stop it. Usopp and Chopper wailed. You know it's all in good fun, Jin chuckled. He was dressed in a black t-shirt under an unzipped, dark blue, hoodless jacket. His regular headband, or more likely one of his replacements, held his hair out of his face. A pair of dark slacks covered his legs and just touched the tops of his black sneakers. It's not funny, we may be nothing but blood splatters on the walls within a day if even some of the stories are true, Robin commented. You're not helping. You know what they say? Zora smirked. They said that this area is haunted by the souls of the damned pirates who died, each of them tied to their drifting ships for all eternity. The 2 most cowardly pirates panicked, fleeing into the ship. Isn't your uncle brave, or what? Koby rolled his eyes, directing his sentence toward Mary. Koby, too, had changed his clothing. He now wore a pair of jeans and a bright red, V-neck shirt under a green hooded jacket. His regular sandals were on his feet and a shark-tooth necklace he'd found in some of what remained of the Rainbow Mist spoils hung around his neck. Finally, his Sabaku no Kiba blades were in their normal spots on his back. I don't think you have a leg to stand on talking about cowardice, Koby, Nami put in. I do believe you had his level of courage when we fought Buggy back in the East Blue. I was a kid back then. Koby protested. I've grown up. I'm sure you think that, too, Mary whispered into Grace's ear, causing the girl to flush and try to stutter out a denial. Bah-ha-ha-ha. Mary wore simple clothes including tan khaki pants and a white t-shirt that showed the red one-piece bathing suit she had on underneath. She was also wearing a pair of white sneakers and had both her heart and hammer tucked in the pockets of her pants and a gray jacket that was partially zipped up. All right, Nami sighed, back to business. So we're stuck in the Florian Triangle where it's said that the weather is even stranger than the rest of the Grand Line. There are stories of ghosts and talking skeletons, and we have no way to see where we're going. What do we do? I want to go find a talking skeleton. Luffy yelled, his arm thrust in the air. Nami punched him over the head. If anything, those skeletons will have to come to us. Yo-oh-oh-yo-oh-ho, what was that? Koby questioned, drawing a sword. The rest of the crew armed themselves, even Usopp and Chopper coming out covered in anti-ghost stuff such as crosses and garlic. Yo-oh-oh-yo-oh-ho, the fog seemed to part, a galleon-sized ship slowly fading into view through the dense mist. The ship was in terrible shape, gouges missing from nearly every part of the ship from boat to stern. The sails were old and ratty, torn to strips that swayed in the breeze, only enough left together for the Jolly Roger to be seen. Mary shivered as the giant ship grew closer, passing the Sunny with a dozen feet to spare. On the railing above them was something, a skeleton with a black fur scowl and a top hat with a teacup in its bony fingers. The teeth of the skeleton separated as it began to sink slowly. Gather up, all of the crew, it's time to ship out, Binks brew. Yo-oh-oh-yo-oh-ho. Slowly, the ship and the singing skeleton passed the gaping pirates and began floating away. That's so cool! Luffy yelled. Mary, grab the ship and pull us alongside. Yes, Captain, Mary dutifully nodded, throwing ropes out from the Thousand Sunny to latch onto the end of the larger ship. The ropes knotted themselves, before tightening, but Mary shivered and fell to her knees as soon as they did so. Mary! Usopp cried worriedly. What's wrong? That ship, she muttered, just loud enough that the others could hear. She's seen so much pain. She had a clabatterman a long time ago, I can still feel her, barely, but she's lost her consciousness. She's there, but she's gone. Her crew is gone. Luffy, this is a bad idea, Nami warned. Relax, Luffy waved off. Worst case scenario, we beat up the skeleton and sail away. I am not going up there, Usopp shouted. And neither is Mary. I don't want to go either, Chopper added. I'll join you, Captain, Robin offered. I'll go, too, Zoro nodded. I'd be interesting to see if I can cut ghosts. Anyone else? Luffy asked. The rest of the crew shook their heads, not particularly inclined to jump in. Luffy and his tag-alongs headed to the larger ship and began climbing. Luffy was the first one over the railing, finally getting a good look at the skeleton. It stood at 8 feet and was dressed in ragged and torn clothing that used to be a nice suit. The jacket was left open, showing that the being had no undershirt to hide its spine and the top of its pelvis. The creature's ribs were hidden from view by a powder blue ascot, and a top hat sat upon its afro. A purple cane rested next to it. The skeleton was sitting, calmly sipping tea as it watched the trio scurry over the railing. It's even cooler up close. The Straw Hat Captain gasped, a smile stretching his face. I would rather not be in it, the skeleton stated. I would prefer to be a he. Wow. A talking, singing skeleton. Do you poop? That's not a question you need to ask, moron, Zoro chastised. Indeed, I do, the skeleton answered. What the hell? Zoro yelled. You didn't need to answer. There are so many questions that should have come before that one. Oh, the skeleton gasped, his eye sockets landing on Robin. What a beautiful woman. If it isn't too much trouble, would you be so kind as to show me your panties? No. Even as Robin answered, Zoro's sword flashed out to cut the talking skeleton's skull off. Yo! The skull laughed as his body bent down to pick the cranium up and replace it upon his spine. Dear me, I thought you were going to kill me. Not that I can be killed since I'm already dead. Yo! Skull joke. Shishishi, Luffy laughed. You're funny. Join my crew, Luffy, Zoro shouted. Sure, the creature answered, ignoring Zoro's indignant protests or Robin's soft chuckling. With a grin splitting his face, Luffy ordered everyone back to the Sunny for dinner. What the hell is that? Most of the crew screamed as the talking, singing skeleton landed on the deck, a bag slung over its shoulder. He's our newest Nakama, Luffy responded, causing Nami to punch him over the head for the second time that day. Chopper and Usopp ran around the deck like chickens with their heads cut off, while Koby, Jin, Frankie, Grace, and Amy were staring at either the undead thing or their pouting captain in shock. What happened? Sanji jumped Zoro. I thought you went to keep him from doing anything stupid." Zoro just hung his head in shame, Robin chuckling beside him. "What a beautiful ship!" the skeleton marveled. "Is this deck real grass?" "Sure is," Frankie boasted. "This is the Thousand Sunny, the super best ship I've ever built." "Marvelous? And what marvelous pirate beauties!" He shuffled over to Amy, Nami, and Grace. "If it isn't an inconvenience, would you three be so kind as to show me your panties?" The question was met with yelling and blows from Luffy, Nami, Amy, Jin, Sanji, and Koby, throwing the skeleton into the railing of the ship. "Yo, I felt that one in my bones." "What are you?" Mary asked, having stopped Usopp's panic to duck behind him. The skeleton stood and turned to face her and her uncle, Usopp bringing up a cross to try to ward him away. "Oh, I haven't introduced myself, have I?" The skeleton blinked, or would have if he had eyelids. "My name is Brook. It's a pleasure to meet you." Taking his top hat off, the newly named Brook bowed before turning his head up to meet Mary's eyes. "And might I ask what you are? I don't believe I've ever met a person with sheep horns before. Perhaps you're a sheep's own?" "Oh, I'm a wood fairy," Mary corrected, reaching out to gingerly shake Brook's offered hand. "You can call me Mary. I was the first ship of this crew." "Don't tell him that," Usopp yelled, picking Mary up and pulling her away from the skeleton. "He could use your name to drag you to the bottom of the ocean." "He could?" Chopper shouted, trying to hide behind Robin's legs and doing so backwards. "How interesting," Brook hummed. "I'd heard stories of Clabattermans, but I never thought I'd meet one in person. You people seem like quite the group. I'd love to learn more about you over dinner." "Do you cook?" Koby asked. "Oh no," Brook shook his head. "I thought you all would." "Don't just invite yourself," Sanji cried. "I'm afraid he didn't, Mr. Cook," Robin corrected. "Captain did." Sanji. Luffy whined. "Food. Yeah, the cook waved off. "Fine, we'll invite the thing. Come on." Chapter 65, of Curses and Ghosts. "This is wonderful," Brook cried, tears impossibly leaking from his eye sockets as he continued to match Luffy's eating pace. "I haven't had food in decades." "Eat all you want," Luffy stated with a mouthful of food. "We have plenty." "Moron," Nami sighed as Luffy's arm shoots over her plate. "So steal something from Jin." And yet Amy began as Jin stabbed at the captain's hand with a fork. "I'm the one married to him," Nami cut her off, ignoring Luffy's cry of pain as his arm snaps back into place to smack him in the face, knocking him off his chair. "Yeah, I know. We've been over this." "Oh, this is absolutely delightful," Brook shouted. "Is there any dessert? I've barely had any sweets since setting sail over 60 years ago." "Try some of the lemon cake," Amy suggested, as Luffy pulls himself back into his chair. "I made it myself." "Oh, no thank you," the skeleton denied. "I am not a fan of lemons." "Luffy, he's not allowed to join," Amy declared. "He doesn't like lemons." "So Mr. Brook," Koby prodded. "Have you always been a skeleton, or?" He trailed off. "Oh, heavens no," Brook answered, swallowing, somehow. "A long time ago, back when I was still alive, I ate the revive fruit." "So you're a devil fruit user?" Mary asked, swinging her feet from her spot on Usopp's lap, an empty salad bowl on the table before her. She ignored Usopp's angry cry as a piece of meat vanished from his plate. "Indeed," the skeleton nodded. "My fruit did precious little for me while I was alive, save for costing me the ability to swim. I used to lead a royal army for my birth country in the West Blue before I retired and became a pirate. We had many wonderful adventures until we had the bad luck of running into a much stronger pirate crew in these waters. The whole crew, including me, were killed." "Don't you dare!" Amy yelled, the handle of her umbrella denting the table where she just missed the captain's hand. Said hand swiped a lemon tart from her. "Damn it. Language." Usopp yelled, covering Mary's ears. Shitty rubber. Sanji cursed, jumping over Nami to axe-kick Luffy, the captain still stuffing the pastry in his mouth. You too. So Koby prodded, actively ignoring the mini-brawl. But Brook cut him off. Upon my death was when the true power of my devil fruit manifested, calling my soul back from beyond the grave. He took a breath. Unfortunately, the fog around here is so thick, poor little soul Brook got lost. I didn't find my body for a whole year, and when I did, there was nothing left of me but bones. You got lost, huh? Luffy blinked, his head retaking its normal shape. That means you must be stupid like Zoro. Hey! The swordsman protested. Geez, Frankie shook his head, Luffy's hand bouncing off of his own where he'd placed it to block his plate. Devil fruits are weird. Tell me about it, Jin muttered, shifting his headband. I mean, several of us here break the laws of physics on a daily basis without any reasoning. Like my big sister, Grace offered, not flinching as Luffy's arm sailed over her head, grabbing Koby's fork out of his hand. She can change the mass of her body or anything she's touched, but that shouldn't be possible. Indeed, Brook agreed as Koby dove over the table to retrieve his fork from the captain, but even amongst devil fruits, the ability to live two lives is quite strange. He glanced at the brawl, the second one in as many minutes, taking place on his right. Is this normal for you all? Yeah, most of the crew responded in a tired voice, Robin, giggling over the sound. Don Luffy's actually been more well-behaved than normal, Jin added. Why do you still have hair? Nami suddenly asked, catching the skeleton off guard. What? Why do you still have hair? The navigator repeated. If you were dead for a year, your hair shouldn't still be around. Nami. Amy admonished. You can't just ask someone why they have hair. I have very strong roots, Brook explained, squeezing his afro. That doesn't even make sense. Usopp complained. Does this mean that you aren't a ghost? Chopper questioned hopefully, oblivious to the fact that Mary was now swiping bits of his own salad. Dear me, no. Brook denied. I hate ghosts. I'm still not sure you have a leg to stand on. There, Amy pointed out, pulling out a hand mirror. I mean, have you looked in a mirror lately? No. Brook cowered, turning away from the reflective surface. Please get rid of the mirror. What's wrong? Usopp questioned, putting Mary down and walking to stand beside the skeleton. He glanced at the thing in Amy's hands. Why don't you appear in the mirror? Vampire. Chopper panicked before pointing at the floor by the skeleton's feet. He doesn't even have a shadow. His declaration caused the rest of the crew to stand, making various noises ranging from screaming to bleating to a strangled roar that devolved into a growl. Jin pulled off his rubber-lined headgear. You're a vampire? Luffy gasped, throwing a growling Koby back across the table. That's awesome. He's not a vampire, Grace waved off skeptically as Koby landed in his chair and toppled backwards. He doesn't have fangs. Everyone knows vampires have fangs. Indeed, Robin agreed. Besides, the only known population of vampires are on the other side of the red line. Wait, what? Usopp questioned, staring at Robin's blank face. He couldn't tell if she was lying or not. Care to explain? Koby growled at Brook as he stood up, his eyes narrowing, his hands moving toward his swords, and his horns beginning to grow. Brook said nothing, rather, he sat down and took a sip of his tea. Now's not the time for that. Sanji yelled. What I told you before was true, Brook sighed, setting his cup down. Why I lost my shadow is another story entirely. You see, my shadow was stolen from me several years ago, cursing me to forever live in the darkness. Stop being so damn poetic and super tell us what happened already, Frankie commented. I would rather not, Brook refused. The man who took my shadow is more of a monster than a man. And without my shadow, I cannot exist in the world of light. Similarly, my reflection cannot be seen in any mirror, nor can my image be captured in any photograph. What happens if you step into the light? Mary asked, no one noticing how pale Koby had suddenly become or that his horns were now receding. He was getting an idea of who or what they might end up facing if Luffy decided to step in. It wasn't good, and Luffy always decided to step in. Every bit of me that the light touched would burn away until it was naught but ash, Brook answered grimly. Years ago, I watched a man afflicted with the same curse, as I go mad and run into the sunlight. His dying screams still haunt me today. Brook stood and turned toward Luffy as the rest of the crew slowly replaced their weapons. Luffy-san, he began. I'm honored and delighted that you would invite me to join your crew, but I'm afraid I must decline. But why? The captain whined. As I said before, if I come into contact with sunlight, I will burn away until nothing remains. As much as my now non-existent heart yearns to join you, it would only be until I inevitably meet my end within the rays of the sun. The only reason I've lived this long is because the thick fog in this area protects me. And believe me, I intend to get my shadow back one day, but I'm prepared to die fighting the man that stole it. He breathed and continued. Some would claim that a long life is a curse, and I might agree with them. You don't know what it's like, drifting on an uncontrollable ship, nothing to keep you company but the memories of your long-dead friends and crewmates, wanting to die every day but not having the guts to throw yourself overboard for decades. Now, I know that it was worth it. I've met wonderful people like you. And I still have a chance to return. To return to my friend whom we left behind. Yo-oh. Yo-oh. Yo-ho yo-ho. Yo-oh. He's going crazy. Sanji yelled, falling into a fighting stance. Brook suddenly stopped and turned, bending down to pull something out of the bag he'd brought with him. It was a violin. Why don't you let me play you a song? Brook asked, hefting the violin to his face and resting the bow over the strings. I was a musician on my last crew, after all. You're a musician, too? Luffy cried. Hurry up and join us already. Yo-oh. How about it? Brook fell backwards, the instrument falling to the floor. The crew stood again, each grabbing their weapons in preparation of a fight. Brook continued to cower, his eye sockets locked onto something by the far wall. GGG ghost, ghost. Usopp and Chopper echoed, falling to the floor to cower with the undead pirate. The ghost in question was sticking halfway out of the wall, showing a defined head with black holes for eyes and large lips. Two stubby arms protruded from the body and a pink tongue stuck out of its mouth. It is a ghost. Luffy cheered. That's so cool. Hey, Nami? Can we keep it? Of course we can't keep it, the navigator scolded as the apparition floated the rest of the way out of the wall. Negative, the ghost chanted in a higher voice, floating through the dining room and out through the other wall. Just as it disappeared, a tremor raced through the ship, sending silverware and cookware to the floor. Oh no, Brook gasped, launching himself up and toward the door to the back of the ship. Oh no. Oh no. What is it? Jin asked, the crew following the skeleton out the door. There appeared to be a set of giant teeth rising out of the water directly behind the Thousand Sunny. The boat Brook had come on still bobbed in the water to the right since Mary had tied the Sunny to it. What is that? Usopp demanded, grabbing Mary and scooping her into his arms for protection. For himself or her was unknown. Did we just get eaten by something again? Again? Chopper, Robin, Frankie, and Mary questioned. None of them had been on the crew, or in Mary's case, fully sentient, before the Island Eater had eaten them after Little Garden and those from before remembered Laboon. It's a gate, Brook whispered. He bolted back into the dining room, flew into and through Chopper's doctor's office, and came out to stand before the railing over the grassy deck. His gaze landed on the massive form in the mist. Oh no. Thriller bark. That's not an ominous name at all, Amy sassed, alerting Brook that the others had followed him once more. You folks didn't happen to pick up a barrel on your way here, did you? Brook questioned. We did, Frankie answered. It was a trap. They've been watching us this entire time. Now, what you see before you is the ghost island of the Florian Triangle, Thriller Bark. It's not showing up on the log pose, Nami muttered. It wouldn't, Brook nodded. You see, this island was originally from the West Blue. I think I know who we're up against, Koby stated, his ashen face showing how terrified he was, though he held his composure much better than he would have at any time before. It's not good. Whose ass am I kicking today? Luffy asked, his knuckles cracking. I'm not sure who will be the one getting their ass kicked, Koby whispered fearfully. All the clues fit: stolen shadows, a ghost island, the name Thriller Bark. It has to be him. Who is it? Zoro demanded. Spit it out, shrimp. It's one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Gecko Maria. The reaction was instantaneous. Nearly everyone panicked, only the heartless trio of Zoro, Amy, and Jin, as well as Luffy, Robin, and Koby not moving. The others either tripped over themselves in shock or tried to take cover behind something. Brook whirled around and stared at the rosette, though he did not have eyes to stare, and gawked at him while ignoring the artist who had planted herself behind the pale zone. Another warlord, huh? Luffy chuckled, shifting the skeleton's attention from Koby to him. I wonder if this gecko was a bigger asshole than Crocodile was. What do you mean another warlord? Frankie gaped, speaking the question that Brook had been trying to get out. Just what kind of crew have I gotten myself involved in? We haven't gotten around to telling you that, have we? Jin chuckled. Here's the short version. Crocodile was trying to overthrow a kingdom. Don Luffy befriended the princess of the kingdom, and then he kicked the Sandman out of the kingdom. It was really just a warm-up before we went to heaven and killed God. Rein yourself in, Jin. Zoro chastised, the handle of Wado Akamaji hitting the human lightning man. You keep talking about killing God. That happened months ago. I'm proud of it, Jin defended. Sue me. As amazing as that sounds, Brook interjected, it is time we part ways. The skeleton moved back into the dining hall to retrieve his purple cane, but left his violin behind. As he returned, the pirates watched in awe as he jumped from the second-story deck to the top of the figurehead's mane. I've had a wonderful time with you, people, but I request that you turn around and flee while you still can. I know not if I will ever leave this island, but here's to hoping that we will meet again somewhere on the high seas. Yo! The undead man jumped after tipping his top hat, flipping backwards off of the ship while still laughing. Wait! Koby yelled. You can't swim. He's gonna drown. Frankie shouted. Before the rest of the crew could move, a mist was kicked up from the sea along the side of the ship. The skeleton, still laughing, was running on top of the water. Holy cow! Grace gasped. I didn't think that was possible. That is surprising, Jin admitted, glancing over at the rest of the crew. We aren't leaving, are we, Don Luffy? The captain didn't answer, but the twinkle in his eye said enough. Guys, the teen smiled. I smell adventure. Chapter 66, The Island. Guys, the teen smiled. I smell adventure. New, the coward trio whined, crocodile tears in their eyes. Yes. Mary cheered. My first adventure as a member. This is the super perfect time to show you what I have in Channel 2. Frankie smirked. Oh, what's in Channel 2? Luffy asked, his eyes shining. Usopp and Chopper wiggled, their way over, their eyes shining as well at the thought of a cool, new toy. As you all know, Frankie began, the Thousand Sunny is equipped with a super unique docking system with 6 different docks. 2 of them, the ones marked 0, are the Sunny's paddle boat features. Dock 1 contains Nami's waver, which I had wanted to style into a super rocking horse, but no. Frankie turned around and pouted, crossing his oversized arms. For the last time, Jin sighed, him having been the one to catch the cyborg in the act of inspecting said waver. That's the Donna's personal craft. You can't touch it without permission. Frankie?" Amy pressed. "The docks? Right. Anyway, while what I have in docks 3 and 4 are a super secret, now is the time to show off channel 2. I'll need 4 volunteers." Excited, Luffy, Usopp, Chopper, Nami, and Mary raised their hands. Leaving the captain, Frankie took the rest of them down into the bowels of the ship through a hatch in the lawn. He returned a second later and ran to the steering wheel where he pulled the lever to release whatever was in Dock 2. "I present to you the Super Ladybug 2. A small boat pulled out of the larger ship, the 4 pirates, aboard. The boat was shaped like its namesake, a tarp roof painted red with black spots in its up position. The sides of the boat were wide, giving the tiny ship a rounder shape, all of which was hidden from above by the tarp which was connected to poles at the front and a storage roll at the back. Nami was at the wheel with Chopper next to her and Usopp and Mary in the back, though they could not be seen. "That's so cool!" Luffy shouted. "I want to ride it." Frankie watched his smaller creation sail around, a smile on his face. "Why is it called 2? Jin questioned. "We didn't have a ladybug eye. That's its number in the dock system," Frankie answered. "It's just the official name. I was going to call it the Going Merry 2 or the Mini Mary, but I didn't think that would be fair to our resident fairy." "It's perfect," Koby stated, eyeing the vessel as Nami's excited calls reached the ship. Suddenly, the water began to churn, waves rising out of the water to push the ladybug away from the Sunny. The mother ship shook, those aboard losing their balance as the anchors dropped into the water. When the pirates got back up, the ladybug and her passengers had vanished into the mist. "Nami!" Luffy called out worriedly. "Nami Swan!" Sanji cried. "Mary-chan!" "Oh dear," Robin sighed in a flat voice, propping her head on her hand. "Let's hope they don't get ripped to shreds, eaten, and digested by sea kings." "Robin!" Amy chastised. Next to her, Sanji stripped off his jacket and footwear. With a running start, Sanji leapt over the railing toward where the ladybug had last been seen, crying out "Nami Swan!" He stopped about a foot away, all of his forward momentum halted through unknown means before gravity took hold. He fell, pivoting around his foot before smacking into the side of the ship. Dazed and confused, Sanji could only feel the wind as whatever it was that had him lifted his body up, spun him around, and threw him back at the other pirates. Zoro pulled Robin out of the way, leaving Jin to take the flying chef. "Having problems, dark brow?" Zoro teased. "Shut up," Sanji shot back, pushing off of his electrical friend. "You saw what happened to me." Yeah, the swordsman waved off, not noticing that one of his weapons was slowly wiggling free. With a sudden jerk, Zoro's cursed Kaitetsu 3 freed itself and flew into the air where it spun, several times before coming down toward the chef and chief of staff. Sanji dove out of the way while Jin all but ripped his headband off, the sword stabbing through his electrical body. "Watch it, Moss Head!" Sanji growled as Jin rolled away from the sword and reapplied his headwear. "What the hell were you thinking?" "It wasn't me," Zoro denied in confusion, carefully approaching the sword stuck in the deck. "Kaya!" Amy cried out, struggling against something the others couldn't see with her arms crossed over her chest. The sound of a growling animal filled the air as a long, wet, and rough thing licked the DevilFruit user's collarbone. "Something's got me. Big sister!" Grace yelled, flinging paint behind the blonde. Whatever had her let go and retreated before the paint could hit the chemical-infused liquid, continuing its path to land on Frankie's leg. "Ow!" the cyborg wailed. "Why am I crying?" "You're made of metal," Koby yelled. "That shouldn't affect you." "This isn't good," Zoro stated, the growling starting up once again. "There's something here." "A mystery thing," Luffy muttered, surprisingly serious. "We've got a mystery thing on our hands." "Something's here," Usopp muttered, trying his best to cower behind Mary as the little Clabberman strutted forward without a care, her white hair flopping this way and that around her curly horns as she took in the scenery of the spooky island. Behind them, Nami and Chopper clung to each other as they shuffled to keep up with the sniper and fairy. "This place looks so dead," Mary announced. "There could be so many monsters hiding in these woods that could attack us at any moment. I love it." "Why?" Chopper moaned. "It's scary. That's why it's so exciting," Mary chirped, spreading her arms. "It was so boring as a ship, being left behind while you all went off on your adventures. Now I'm here, exploring these creepy woods on my own 2 feet. I don't think I'll ever get enough of this." She stopped, Usopp bumping into her. "Why'd you stop?" the sniper questioned. "Stairs," the little girl answered, gesturing forward to the stone steps that lead into the darkness before them. Dark stone walls rose up on either side, plunging the bottom in darkness. A smile stretched across the fairy's face. "Let's follow them." "No!" Usopp cried. "We don't know what's down there. That's what makes it fun." Mary chirped again. "We should just go back to the Ladybug and meet up with the others on the Sunny." "That's boring, Uncle Usopp," Mary whined, sounding like Luffy. "You know Captain Luffy will have us storm this island to help Brook get his shadow back anyway. We're like the advance party." "I don't want a party on this island," Chopper cried, misunderstanding their newest member's words. "I'd rather party on the Sunny. Let's go." Pulling her wooden hammer from a pocket on the right side of her pants, Mary gestured forward and started descending. "Mary, get back here!" Usopp shouted, sounding more like an overprotective father than an honorary uncle. He scrambled down after the girl, Nami and Chopper following lest they be left behind. They reached the bottom, old skulls and bones crunching under their feet. "Oh!" Mary gasped. "Skeletons. Last time I saw these we ended up going to Skypiea." "That's a good sign." "No it's not," the other 3 wailed. Mary ignored them and continued forward. "Mary!" Usopp yelled. "Get back here or you're grounded." "You can't ground me, Uncle Usopp," Mary called back without breaking stride. "You need a beach to ground a ship." The sniper ran to catch the fairy. "She has Amy's sass and Robin's intelligence," Nami moaned. "And of course they'd work together. I'm just glad she doesn't seem to have any of Sanji's pervertedness." The quartet continued through the creepy ravine. Grrrrrrrrrr. Something growled in the distance, 5 eyes opening to glow gold in the dark, 2 pairs and a single eye to the left. The creature stepped into the moonlight, revealing it to be a giant beast with 3 heads. The beast, which stood about as tall as Frankie, was colored mostly blue with yellow hair and stood on 4 legs. The head on the left was orange, a sharp contrast to the blue of the other 2 head, and had bandages covering one of its eyes. Scars and stitches covered the monster and divided the changes in color, an 84 sticking out on the orange of its left side. The beast padded forward on 4 paws, 3 yellow, furry tails flicking behind it as it growled. Finally, Mary cheered. Something to fight. She raised her hammer and prepared to charge. The other 3 had other ideas. Usopp grabbed Mary and he, Nami, and Chopper in his walk point bolted back the way they had come. "What the hell is a Cerberus doing here?" Usopp cried, the monster, giving chase with alternating barks and yips. "What's a Cerberus?" Nami screamed. "It's said to guard the underworld." Usopp answered. "Stop struggling, Mary. I wanna fight it." Mary yelled. "I'll kick its ass once per head." "Mary!" the sniper chastised. "Language. Woof woof real. Woof woof real." "Wait a second," Chopper muttered. "I'm on to you. One of your heads is a fox head, real." The Cerberus whined, stopping. The pirates slowed to a stop and looked over at the crying dog, Fox. "I think that might have been a sore spot," Usopp muttered. The Cerberus jumped up and let out an even louder roar. The pirates panicked and bolted again. "Correction. That was definitely a sore spot. I'm sorry," Chopper yelled over his shoulder. Reaching the stairs, the quartet ran upwards, taking them 2 or 3 at a time before finally seeing the forest again. Thinking quickly, They dashed up a tree just in time to avoid the three-headed beast coming out of the stairwell. "Hey!" Mary tried, her shout being muffled almost instantly by the combined efforts of Usopp, Nami, and Chopper. Despite her struggling and wish to fight, the others kept the fairy at bay. The beast, below, wandered off in a random direction, its nose and hearing not on par with that of a live animal. The coward trio each let out a breath as the beast's growling faded to nothingness. "Oh dear," a voice muttered, the pirates' heads snapping toward the direction on the sound. That was it. Usopp and Nami screamed while Chopper nearly fell out of the tree. "Vampire." Now, the voice, placated. "No need to be rude. My name is Hilda." The thing that was speaking certainly looked like a vampire. Hilden was hanging from an adjacent branch by his feet, gravity making his blonde hair face downward. The man had gray skin and a rather nice butler suit. 2 large canine teeth poked out from his gray lips and a 21 was tattooed over his left eye, said eye and its twin small and beady, with a black ring around each. The opposite eye had a scar running straight up into his hairline and his ears were pointed. "I'm sorry you had to face that creature," Hilden continued. "Please, allow me to escort you to the mansion where you will be given food and dressed. Dr. Hogback doesn't get many visitors, after all." "Dr. Hogback?" Chopper gasped. "Yes. Who is Dr. Hogback?" Mary asked. "He's only one of the world's best doctors," Chopper answered with stars in his eyes. "He saved as many lives as there are stars in the sky. Do you think he'd give me his autograph?" "I don't see why not," Hilden chuckled. "Please, follow me to the carriage." Bonus. Den discussions, Mary and Kaya, after an ice lobby, booed up. "Are you sure about this, Uncle Usopp?" Mary asked, fidgeting, as the den's ringing drew out. "Maybe she won't like me or think I'm too unnatural. I'll just head back in with the others." "Oh no you don't," Usopp denied. "Trust me. Kaya will be shocked and delighted to hear about you." "But California lick hello?" Kaya's voice floated from the snail. "Hey, Kaya," Usopp greeted. "It's me. Usopp. How are you? What's going on?" "Oh, the sniper, waved. We just finished storming a super-secret marine base a couple days ago to save Robin and got a new crew member. Nothing too big for the great Captain Usopp." "You did what?" Kaya demanded. "Is that another one of your tall tales? If you think that's crazy, wait till I have you talk to our newest member Mary." "Mary? That's a nice name." "I'd hope so," Usopp chuckled. "Your butler named her, after all." "What do you mean? Why don't you ask her yourself?" Usopp thrust the microphone into the wood fairy's hand. "Go on." Hi?" Mary timidly greeted. "Oh, hello," the blonde on the other end responded. "I take it you're Mary? How old are you? You sound young." "Technically, I'm 4, Mary began, "but I only remember the last few months." "What's your full name?" "Going, Mary whispered. "Going Usopp. This better not be some prank you've wrapped this little girl up into." "It's not," Usopp denied, scandalized. "Mary is the spirit of the Going Mary, a wood fairy." "What's a wood fairy?" "And I'd rather have the little girl answer this one." "I can't trust you, right now, Usopp." Uncle Usopp isn't lying," Mary muttered. "I really am the spirit of the Mary. I'm what's known as a Clabatterman." What? This isn't a prank?" "I'd never prank you, Kaya," Usopp responded. "Go on, Mary. Tell your Aunt Kaya your story." "Aunt? So. Mary fumbled. "So. Wood fairies are created through the bonds of a crew. And. That happened." "Mary, sweetheart," Kaya said gently, stopping the jumbled grouping of words coming from the little, horned girl. "You don't have to be nervous." Mary swallowed, trying to steel her nerves. Her next sentences were a little more coherent. So would fairies like me are made when a ship's crew love each other without question. Sometime after getting to the Grand Line, I started to notice things and slowly became more aware as the crew got bigger. Only recently was I able to take shape. The little girl cracked a smile, turning her eyes on Usopp. The first time I did, I made Uncle Usopp faint. "Hey!" the sniper cried over the sound of his girlfriend laughing through the snail. We were in a forest in the sky and there was mist everywhere. And you caught me off guard. Anyway, Mary sang, much more at ease even though her mood slid downhill as her story approached common events. I was starting to fall apart at that point despite how much care Uncle Usopp tried to give me, so I thought it was time the crew started letting me go, but then Robin just had to go turn herself in to let us get away when we couldn't and Captain Luffy had to go after her. That was the super secret marine base raiding I mentioned. Usopp cut in. "Hush, you. Kaya chastised. Let the girl talk." "Yes, ma'am," the sniper gulped. So Captain Luffy and the others ran off to save Robin, leaving me here at Water 7 when a big storm was coming and the bad guys released me with the hope that I'd sink. But I didn't. I just had this feeling telling me that I couldn't die yet, so I sailed myself through the storm to an ice lobby, the marine base, and saved everybody. My goodness. Kaya gasped. "You're telling me?" Usopp laughed. "Imagine our surprise when we were stuck on a broken bridge, surrounded by 50 Navy battleships, and our little old Mary comes sailing in without a care in the world. I, being the great Captain Usopp, the last one conscious after our battle with nearly 3,000 Marine captains upon that broken bridge, valiantly. Yeah, Kaya waved off through the den, causing Mary to laugh at Usopp's scandalized expression. Her voice became distant, shouting something away from the receiver. "Mary! Get in here. There's someone on the line you'll want to talk to." "Who is it, Miss Kaya?" "Kaya's butler and caretaker," Mary asked. There was shuffling on the other end of the line along with a gasp of surprise. "Miss Kaya? I can't believe that Usopp's tomfoolery would rub off on you even leagues away. That is not funny. I'm telling the truth," the blonde on the line insisted. "Here. Talk to her. If you insist," the butler relented. "Hello? To whom am I speaking?" Mary blinked, her nervousness returning. "Hi. I'm the going Mary. I like to think that I'm your daughter?" The fairy's voice hitched at the end, really hoping she hadn't overstepped her bounds with her creator. There was a pause on the other end. "Mary?" the butler questioned. "Yeah." The little wood fairy shifted. "This is a miracle." The butler exploded from the other end. "I've always wanted children." "You did?" Both Usopp and Kaya gasped. "I never got the chance." Butler Mary continued, undisturbed by the younger human's shock. "Oh, happy day. Happy day." "You know what?" Usopp muttered, patting Mary on the shoulder. "I'll leave this to you. Have fun." The sniper started backing out of the room. Uncle Usopp. The door closed, leaving Mary with her celebrating creator on the other end of the den call, the man crying out she's alive.